All right, good morning, everybody. This is the Joint Budget and Public Works Quarterly Meeting. Wednesday, June 28th. I'm here. Councilmember Harris is present, Vice President Moreno, President Morel, and Councilmember Green. So with that, I will ask for a motion to approve the Public Works and Budget Committee meeting minutes of March 29th, 2023 and June 27, 2023. Moved by Councilmember Moreno, seconded by Councilmember Green. Hearing and seeing no opposition, we'll move forward with those. We have a number of items that have various authors on them. So I think the proper procedure or way to deal with this is to allow either the author or the co-author deal with them. And then if we have any where somebody isn't here, we can come back. So Councilmember Harris, do you want to handle item number 3?
Yeah, if we can, I'll go ahead and move to approve. Can I get a second? It's a contract between Legacy Professional Services for continued service managing the city's streetlight system, which is important.
A second.
Seconded by Council President Morel. All in favor? Okay, great.
We'll come back to item number 4 because I think technically under the rules you need an author or a co-author here. Item number 5, Councilmember Green.
This is to create a servitude to permit the city of New Orleans to drive over Orleans Parish School Board land, 1700 Pratt Drive. The city wishes to make stormwater improvements and engage in community improvements to the Dillard wetlands for the benefit of the city. But again, it simply gives a servitude a right to drive over the land so that there are no issues and there's no fiscal impact on the city. I move for approval of motion number 23-294.
There's an online comment, one online comment.
All right.
This comment comes from Casey Jerome Davis. She represents Gentilly residents. They're not paid. They're in support of the item. The comment reads, Garden Swells has played a pivotal role in giving floodwaters a place to rest while alleviating roads from flooding and mitigating structural damage. These stormwater collection systems have a significant impact on reducing or eliminating damages due to rainfall that collects before the pumping system has a chance to drain the streets. The Pontchartrain Park Stormwater Collection Project has proven success and capacity to make a significant difference in protection from flood-causing rainfall. We should have these all over the city. That completes the comment.
Well, there you go. Let's start off on a favorable note with our online comments. Thank you very much, Ms. Davis, for that support. So I move for approval of 23-294. Seconded by Council Vice President Moreno. Members, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you for your support.
All right, and we'll do the same thing, put all these items on the consent agenda for the July 13th council meeting. All right, we'll come back to item number 6. Item number 7, members, these are ordinances sent by the administration. The first is appropriating unspent Act 119 funds to NORD, transferring a little over $400,000 from intergovernmental revenue to NORD. I'll move for approval. Seconded by Councilmember Moreno. Seeing no opposition, item number 7 carries unanimously. Number 8 is appropriating grant funds to Department of Health to hire and train coordinators, purchase naloxone kits, and develop informational educational materials on substance overdose and prevention. I know Councilmember Moreno has been leading on this, so I'll move, seconded by Councilmember Moreno. Any opposition? Seeing none, item number 8 carries unanimously. Item number 9 is to appropriate additional funds to OPSI as a result of increase of reserve officers needed during Mardi Gras 2023. I'll move for approval, seconded by Councilmember Green. Hearing no opposition, item number 9 carries unanimously. Item number 10 is appropriating funds to the Office of Mayor for emergency and recovery to reimburse various departments. Thank you for Hurricane Ida related expenses. I'll move for approval, second by Councilmember Morel. Hearing no opposition, item 10 carries unanimously. Item number 11 is appropriating grant funds by the Louisiana Workforce Commission to the Office of Workforce Development to enroll and train clients for the lineman program. Transferred $95,000. Move for approval, seconded by Councilmember Moreno. Seeing no opposition, item number 11 carries unanimously. Item number 12 is ordinances related to appropriating grant funds awarded by FEMA to the CAO for the removal and replacement costs of servers and 20 security cameras during the aftermath of Hurricane Ida. I'll move for approval, seconded by Councilmember Green. Seeing and hearing no opposition, item number 12 carries unanimously. All right, so with that, we are through most of the voting items except for items 4 and 6. Councilmember Thomas comes and we'll get back to those. And unless somebody has any place to be, we'll just go in order of the agenda from here on out. So with that, we'll call Sewage and Water Board to make a presentation related to its quarterly report. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate the opportunity for being here this morning. And we understand, obviously, the agenda item is the quarter report and the construction report. And we've made some slight adjustments relative to selecting few items that we think are worthy of providing you with more up-to-date data and information, given the fact that the quarter report was the first quarter and some of the data may have been maybe out of date already. So we wanted to provide you with up-to-date information. And I want to take advantage of the fact that we're here this morning and have you as an audience and share with you the fact that we are starting tomorrow, we're going to start mailing our annual confidence report on water quality. It's a mandated report by LDH. However, we've taken the approach of expanding the report beyond what's mandated to allow our customers to understand what we do and how we do it. We did that last year and we received a lot of positive feedback about the valuable and relevant information that we have shared with the community. So we'd ask you to help us promote this because we truly believe it's very helpful and you will all obviously receive it at your house as a consumer. I also want to take advantage today and given the harsh weather conditions that we're all experiencing, not only locally but regionally, I just want to give a big shout out to all our field crews out there, whether they are the folks who are repairing a water main, reading a meter, or just fixing a piece of equipment out there in this weather. Just want to acknowledge that they are doing the work despite the harsh conditions. And with that, Ron Spooner here with me, the GSO, and we're going to tag team delivering couple of our priorities and progress reports. So we're going to start with obviously a very pertinent topic, the hurricane readiness, and let him walk us through what we've done and the fact that we are ready for the season.
Thank you, Kasani. Good morning, committee. Quick thing on the hurricane preparedness, the Sewage and Water Board, we are prepared as always for this upcoming hurricane season. As you see, we are working with our partners with the Corps of Engineers, Entergy, the Southeast Louisiana Flood District Authority, that's the Flood Protection Authority East as well as West, and as well as GOSEP. So we're in a partnership with those authorities, taking a look at our power demand. As you can see, our peak demand is right at 25 hertz. is 42 megawatts, and we have a total power generating capacity of 62 megawatts. And just as a footnote, the Distribution Water Board, we are participating in Entergy's Metro Hurricane Readiness session tomorrow. So we will be with our partner Entergy tomorrow, and we're also continuing to have our internal meetings relative to hurricane preparedness. Other quick thing, the next slide is we're going to talk a little bit about into on the maintenance side with the grass cutting and maintenance. As you can see, just a quick snapshot of where we are on our East Bank canals. We've completed as this part of June 13 of the 18 canals that we had scheduled for June. So that is pretty much on pace. And the West Bank, we've completed 12 of 12 canals, and that's associated mainly with grass cutting. So we do have a robust grass cutting schedule throughout the hurricane season. So we do maintain that. And just to let everyone know, our support services crew is a very small crew. We are building that crew. And thanks in part to the job fair from last year and also a job fair this year. And the executive director will talk a little bit about that in the slide. So again, this crew and support services, not only do they maintain the grass, but they also do the ground maintenance crews as well as canal cleaning. And again, just to point out that the existing drainage millage does not fully support a separate canal cleaning crew. So again, so we maximizing the use of our current funds in place now to get that done. And then, again, as I said earlier, our ground maintenance crews, we split time between cutting the grass as well as maintaining the canal cleaning. One positive note I want to say is we have started the process of developing an online dashboard for grass cutting, dashboard in progress. So thanks to the inquiry from Councilman Thomas's office, who inquired about this once he read the article on NOLA.com about Jefferson Parish's grass cutting. He asked, hey, I think the water board should take a look at that. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we're pretty much right around 70% in the development stage. We're doing some testing now. And I think that will definitely be a plus for the community relative to keeping everyone up to date on the grass cutting. And I'll turn it back over to the executive director.
Thank you, Ron. I'd like to proceed by providing you an update on one of the critical projects that we have undertaken a couple of years ago, significantly with your support and a lot of partner support at the state level and actually at the federal level as well. And the project is moving forward very nicely. It's progressing. We're tracking exactly as the original schedule was designed. So the Entergy piece, which is the substation, is on track. It's actually becoming more and more visible. I would love to have the opportunity to bring you out there and show you the progress. You can see the picture of that about maybe even a couple of weeks ago old, but it's definitely showing the progress of that the substation on budget and on time. As far as our pieces together, you know, a lot of components, many more moving parts, which includes a turbine 7, includes 3 frequency changers, the utility rack. Many of those components are progressing as designed as well. As you all know, we had faced a unforeseen funding challenge, having been expecting $39 million to complete the project and make it ready for the 2025 hurricane season. The amount of money that we got from capital outlay was $15 million, which you know, caused us to pivot and kind of assess what we can and cannot do. And with the $15 million, we concluded that we can keep the project moving, but we are limited then to only one of the frequency changers, one of the 3 frequency changers being connected and utilized, which means that limits our use of the 60+ megawatts of the substation to the capacity of 1 frequency changer, which is 22 megawatts. Obviously, in talking with Councilman Giarrusso, he asked what would it take to get a second frequency changer online, and we quantified that cost to be $9.8 million. So at this point, I'd like to refer to Councilman Giarrusso relative to a a tentative plan that we're working on that allowed us to add on that second frequency changer, if that's okay.
So members, I think all of you know that this has been a significant issue for me and Councilmember Moreno from the word jump and how hard we've worked to secure the 52 million for the substation. My greatest worry is that we have turbines that are older than everybody in this room put together, and that we are on a path to have construction done sometime the end of 2024, early 2025, which only gives us 2 more hurricane seasons we should be worried about. With the $15 million secured by Sewage and Water Board for the first frequency changer, my personal view is that it is a necessity for us to secure the extra 9.8. And Ghassan, you tell me if I'm wrong about the way that I've explained this, but the way I think we can accomplish this, members, is Sewage and Water Board is owed $5 million annually as a result of the fair share deal. I've spoken with the administration, who's willing to make an advance of the $5 million owed in 2024 to Sewage and Water Board, potentially as early as August. And then Sewage and Water Board will secure a loan or other capitalization for the other $5 million so that we can keep this running on track. And the second phase of the frequency changers will remain unchanged as a result. Did I explain that correctly?
Fairly.
Okay, all right.
It was-
Well, let me know where
once-
I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, not at all. Everything you said is accurate. Just want to make sure that for transparency purposes, the other 5 million will come from this, from the fair share as well, which will use the 2023 $5 million amount. We couple that with the 5 million of advance from 2024. That gives us the 10 million. And obviously the relevance here is that having 2 frequency changers will allow us to utilize typically what we need during a peak demand. During a significant storm or event, we need about 44 megawatts, and that would allow us to capitalize on that, use the, more than the 44 available power from the substation, use the 2 frequency changers, and then we will have new and reliable source of power in 2025.
Well, Ghassan, can I ask you maybe a series of questions that will help hopefully maybe explain this a little more clearly, because I think all this is complicated and certainly we're not engineers. The substation that is being built will run on 60 hertz power. Is that correct?
Will produce 60,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you. All right, we'll produce 60 hertz power. And then the frequency changers are what they sound like. They can convert the 60 hertz power to 25 hertz power.
That's correct.
And then there's 3 phases that this additional equipment is needed to do. One phase is to help operate the first frequency changer, which will take the produced 60 megawatt power and convert it to 22 megawatts of 25 hertz power. Is that right?
Yes.
Then the second phase, what we're talking about getting the additional $10 million for, will help with the second frequency changer. Will that equally produce another 22 megawatts of 25 hertz power? And then the third phase is about redundancy
Yes.
in the system. And how much will the third phase produce?
That's another 22. So they're equal capacity frequency changers. And, by design, we do an N plus 1. So 2 is what we need plus 1 in case one of them breaks down.
Got it.
So we'll be in good shape in 2025 with the hopes that the third one will follow the following season.
Members, does anybody have a question about this? Because I actually think this is a fairly significant piece of news that rather than being behind the 8 ball and being delayed for 2025, that we remain on track with a new power source that will provide the essential amount of power, 44 megawatts, Sewage and Water Board will need to operate the new substation.
Mr. Chair, is there anything that the council has to do relative to the advances?
So what we'll have to do is 2 things. Yes, good question. 2 things. One is in August, we will need to pass the ordinance to advance the $5 million for the frequency changer. And then number 2 is there's been a handshake between the city and Sewage and Water Board on this annual $5 million. I think we need to pass an ordinance just cementing and codifying that so memories don't fade. Handshakes can be forgotten, paper can't. So I think those are two things that we want to do. And then I think the other thing, Councilmember Green, is make sure that we're getting regular updates from our utilities to make sure everything remains on track for end of 2024, beginning of 2025.
So in August, we'll pass an ordinance for 2023's advance and 2024. Is that possible, or do we have to wait till budget season?
So Sewage and Water Board, we've already passed the 5 million for 2023.
Okay.
They are in the process of receiving that money. It's been allocated, but hasn't been sent yet or is in the process of being spent. So that's the first 5 million. The second 5 million is the advance for 2024.
You know,
And I think we all recognize today that you get the advance one time for 2024, not twice.
Yes.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
Well,
Thank you.
I can't thank you enough,
Absolutely.
Councilman
No,
Jules, for your.
it's a group effort. I mean, you see all the council members up here,
Absolutely.
who agree with this. So I think I thank all of them too, because they have been equally committed to making sure this works.
Right, I was gonna finish with that, but I recognize everybody's support and recognizing this is by far one of the most critical projects that we're delivering for the city for the next 50+ years. So I appreciate that. Moving on to another critical project that we're doing as it relates to billing and meter reading. A couple pieces here. As you all know, we've shared with you an interim solution to our challenges associated with reading all 140,000 meters every month. And we had split the population of the meters by half. And that started in November. And so we alternate reading a meter every other month. And with that, I'd like to share some, critical data associated with the progress of that and the fruit that this effort is bringing forth. We jumped from before the implementation of that approach from 63%, where that was the number we were hovering at, struggling with reading only 60+%, to now 96.7%. And our goal is to read as high as 98%. Recognizing that there'll always be anomalies out there that prevent us from reading 100%. So that's we think is a very significant progress, which is obviously allowing us to bring timely and accurate reads to our customer. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about the smart meter and what it's going to deliver ultimately, but we believe that the 2+ years that we have to wait, this is a meaningful approach that's bringing results. I want to talk a little bit about the door hanger and related ordinance, updating you on this. We're moving forward with obviously the implementation of that. We have produced designed door hangers. Because of procurement, we've ordered under a expedited fashion a limited number, with the idea as to we're going to order all the ones we will need to have a complete execution or compliance. So the front of the tag will obviously mark that we were there, the name of the reader, and noting what action was taken, whether we actually read the meter, inability to read the meter, and obviously the date. And on the back, we're taking advantage of having that space, and we're going to start promoting the smart meter as obviously the next and permanent solution for our billing issue. We're doing a lot of training, obviously, for our meter readers and our staff. Want to make sure that it's being done safely and with quality. In terms of interacting with our customers, being prepared for any situation that they may face. We know that may generate some calls, so we're going to train our customer service, and we're looking forward to rolling that out within 2 weeks, and we'll certainly share with you any relevant updates associated with that. moving on to the smart meter, just a quick update. There's a lot that's happening that's not very visible. Question?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I do have a question.
Okay.
Energy has smart meters in the ground right now. Will the smart meters that Sewage and Water Board is getting ready to install citywide have capacity to either read or work with those meters or the nodes that are working? In other words, it's just what I know about smart metering, other than it eliminates human capacity, is very limited, but it seems to me it's almost like 5G. The more things you have closer together and the tighter it is, the more efficient everything works. I was just curious if the same thing is true between the two utilities.
That is very true. And then actually part of the design for the communication piece at a high level is that we are creating at least a minimum of two path for a meter to communicate. In some cases, in many cases, we have three ways. So if one fails, another one will kick in, and if that fails, a third one would, which is very unlikely, but in that case, we have a third redundant path for communication. So we've learned from other cities. We've been in communication with Entergy, lessons learned, obviously good practices that they've learned and shared. So we're trying to be as thoughtful and as intentional as we can as we move forward with that.
Great, thank you.
So like I was saying, a lot of invisible work that's happening, but it's very critical. So we're doing a lot of the base stations. We have 12 of them designed, 9 of them are installed, 3 are very imminent. And those are key because if without those, the meters cannot communicate with a central location to produce a bill. The IT integration is another crucial piece. We have learned lots of lessons from previous softwares and the training and how seamless that must be. So we're moving forward with caution to make sure that everything we're doing, and then the minute we flip the first meter, it will work and it will work flawlessly. So that's our goal. Very exciting news. We sought after a loan from the state, and we were able to gain $5 million toward that the smart meter project. As many of you know, if not all of you know, that the project is not yet fully funded, and we continue to look for funds to make sure that all $67 million are within our reach to be able to complete the project.
I have a question. I'm still getting emails and calls about bills that just seem to be irregular. They jump from a steady amount every month to double and triple the next month. And Ms. Birch and Mr. Nelson have been doing a great job of communicating with those constituents. But is that a issue that I'm just seeing? Is that something that's still growing? And what's the cause for these bills to continue to jump and not be, I don't know, just not be a standard, a bill that you can expect in your expenses every month go from $200 to $500 to $1,000, but in a matter of months?
Right. So there may be a couple of reasons for that. One, we suspected when we started reading steadily every other month, we had started touching and reading a meter probably for the first time in months, just because of the way it had been going on. So we knew that the true ups were going to cause an issue, whether up or down, and a spike in that. So I think we've smoothed that out, having started in November. So we have a significant 4 reads minimum for each of the meters, or at least 97% of them. We still have some issues with maybe a flawed meter that once we get the call and we start the investigation, if we do a field inspection, and if we calibrate or test the meter, and if it found ineffective or inaccurate, then we swap it or repair it. Each case is unique, so I would urge you, every time you have a situation, just please share it, and we'll be on it and fix it as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to.
Wait, before we go on, just follow up to Councilman King's question. I know that an issue my office has run into is the ongoing issue with constituents complaining about the adjustments regarding estimated billing. And I had one constituent in particular who called, who she pays her bill every month. She received a balance of an additional $900 in 1 month. And when she called, she was told that her bill had been estimated for 3 years. It had finally been analyzed and the balance was about $20 per month. And that was now due immediately as a lump sum. I guess a couple of questions. One, this was an individual who had the means because they were an attorney to pay $900. So they did. It was just as an anecdote, it was further problematic because their water was cut off anyway, but that's separate. My larger question is, if we're in the habit of going back 2 to 3 years to claw back estimated billing, when someone is given and is on a fixed income and is given a large amount they must suddenly pay, with the verbal threat of, and if you don't pay it, we'll cut off your water, do you see that as problematic?
Absolutely. That's why we do not approach our customer with that approach. We give always, when the true up is significant, we provide them with a payment plan as an automatic approach.
In this instance, they were not provided with a payment plan. They were told to pay immediately, which is why they paid immediately in a lump sum. So that could be a customer service education issue.
Yeah.
But my concern is that even if the policy differs from that behavior, the experience of that customer is that. And that's the kind of experience that gets amplified to one customer, the other customers, and inherently digs sewage and water board into a deeper hole as far as how they interact with customers. So if the policy is on a balance bill to offer a payment plan upfront, I think there needs to be some re-education to make sure customer service representatives are doing that, because the hole they dig you in as an institution is immeasurable, especially considering, as I've noted on several occasions, we have to go back to voters repeatedly for millages. And if their limited experiences with sewage and water board customer service representatives are bad, and that's their experience, it becomes a challenge to this pamphlet has great information. The question becomes, it's much harder for someone to digest this without bias if their customer service interactions are bad.
Right. We couldn't agree more. I mean, obviously, that's why the policy is there. Obviously, we're as good as implementing the policy. Do some our customer service agents maybe not follow it. Obviously, we can only know when somebody alerts us, and then we'll take immediate action. And we will definitely go back and make sure that that is understood. If somebody is willing to pay and is able to pay, obviously we'll take the true up amount. But the minute they say I can't afford it, the payment plan is readily available.
Then I think the question becomes, the policy might be clearer if the payment plan is offered when the large amount is given. Because if you have to inquiry to get the payment plan, and someone is told that I have this large amount and it's intimated that their water might be cut off, they may not know to affirmatively ask for a payment plan.
Yeah,
I know it's something that we as a council have really got onto with Entergy about, and Entergy has been much more proactive about letting people know when the bill spikes to a certain point that payment plans are an option. That has to be affirmative, not upon request, because if a person doesn't know the code word to ask for the payment plan, then the assumption is the amount's due at once.
Yeah, and then I know Grace promotes that concept constantly, but we'll have to do a better job, make sure everybody is well aware of that option from the first interaction we have with them.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate the feedback. Another critical project that I know many of us face as we drive around the city, the numerous number of surface cuts that had not been repaired for years. We took that, we elevated that issue this year. We've doubled our budget. We've also brought equipment to help our crews do a better job more efficiently. We brought on two contractors to help us breaking down about 3,000 location backlog. We also are partnering with the city who brought $8+ million toward this effort to help us also take care of about 1,200 locations. And we just recently brought additional funding from the fair share to keep that pace going. And I think we're doing a tremendous and significant progress in that. We're hoping the 3,000 number of backlog is gonna come to be reduced to somewhere between 600 and 1,000 by the end of this year. And then we're not gonna obviously relent. We're gonna keep going with a elevated budget until that backlog is completely depleted. And now we're at a place where anything we generate due to a water main repair or anything else, we are within 2 to 4 weeks from repairing that surface cut and then moving on. So that's how that's the model we're gonna adopt once we get rid of the backlog, which hopefully will be mid next year.
Yeah, and let me say this, Matthew from my office and I go on service cut tours with Steve Nelson and Ryan basically every Friday, and we have a list from our constituents. We go and look at them, and there has been tremendous progress, but there are several that I think are critical to public safety. For example, around the second district police station that still are not paved, and the police literally cannot get from their station to incidents because there are giant service cuts that are still unpaved. So if you can prioritize those, I mean, Steve is outstanding, Ryan's outstanding, but I want to talk to you all, since you are leadership, about making sure that those critical areas where there are police stations or fire stations, that those are the priority. It's nice to have service cuts fixed, and they all should be fixed, but where, and we talked about this yesterday, where it impacts public safety, those need to be prioritized.
Absolutely. And
So if you can take a ride around the second district police station today, look at those and get those on your list and prioritize those, I'd be very appreciative.
Definitely do that.
appreciate that, and we
Before,
appreciate the time.
before you
you take.
continue, Mr. Corbin.
Yeah.
Mr. Hassan Corbin, I would be remiss, my cure office reminded me that in section 159.3 E, the billing ordinance specifically states that in the event a customer receives a bill amount 20% higher than the customer's last actual bill, Sewage and Water Board shall allow the customer to enter into a deferred payment arrangement through which Sewage and Water Board will collect the balance due over a period of not less than 2 billing cycles and not to exceed 24 billing cycles. So I think it's important for us as a council to establish, when we said the way the communication is going with customer service regarding those spiked bills, that isn't optional, that's required.
Yeah.
So when that interaction is taking place, there has to be affirmatively an effort on Sewage and Water Board's point to offer the billing payment plan affirmatively. It can't be optional, and it can't not be on the forefront of that conversation.
I fully agree, and I maybe didn't state it clearly. We are in full compliance with that.
Okay.
And we will confirm that and then have a further communication to make sure that there's no misunderstanding about that, that it is not an option, it is required, and we're complying with it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, if, how much more of your presentation do you have left?
A couple more slides.
All right, well, I'm gonna wait, until you finish, and then I'll ask my questions and make my point.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yeah, the other quick update I want to share with you, it's, I think we believe it's exciting and it's relevant, and you would appreciate the a job fair that we held back on June 9th. And not only we have a lot of opportunities for folks in the city to work, there are a lot of people who are seeking work, and evident by the fact that one day of that job fair, 900 people showed up looking for a job. And it was very well organized, well structured, where we had a one-stop shop, allowing people to apply, fill out an application, have an interview, had a drug test, all in one. So because we felt if you capture that one person and,
Don't say one-stop shop.
okay,
That's,
sorry, I'll
well,
take that
yeah,
back.
yeah, try to find, that's not a good word.
Okay.
It's a slogan,
Okay,
but I haven't seen anything to be true about it.
okay. Well,
Sorry to interrupt.
I'll rephrase it and tell you that we've availed a lot of services that we provided to our potential candidates in that space, where not only they came and looked what is available, we provided them with an application to fill out. We actually, if they were interested, we would interview them. And then if they pass that interview and they seem to be qualified or meet their requirements, we provided a ability to do a drug test with results to be obviously obtained later. So they left the room with a much more or higher percentage of being our employee than had they just left with just a knowledge that we have a job for them. So we've maximized that opportunity, and we're gonna obviously continue that effort because not only we need folks, but we recognize that our folks need jobs, and then that's a great partnership. And just wanted to highlight the effort that took place and that it was fruitful. So I appreciate the feedback. Quick note about our disadvantaged business enterprise. We're overall, we are consistently achieved the 35%. And in the quarterly report from last quarter, we had contracted or awarded $16.6 million worth of work to DBE subs for our current ongoing work. So that program continues to be very successful. And then two last quick topics. I'm gonna ask Ron to update you on a couple of them, and then we'll open it for questions.
Yeah, and I thank you, Son, Mr. Gabon. Two last things. This topic is our water hammer mitigation program. So this is our successful program. You see at the Carrollton Water Plant. So the first two of the three projects, or two projects have been complete. The water tower is first. This past June, we did final acceptance on the Claiborne pumping station rehab. So that is up and running. And we are working on our last contract, which is upgrading the potable water pumps, the last four, two at our Panola pumping station, as well as our Highland pumping station. So that last contract is scheduled to be complete in May, June of next year, 2024. And then the last slide relative to the operation side on construction is our ongoing Southeast Louisiana drainage program. And that is with SEALA. So that is ongoing with our partner, the Corps. The two slides you see here, those are our major projects and construction in Algiers. That's with the Algiers Basin. The first project along General de Gaulle is a year and a half ahead of schedule, and we are working with the Corps for the Algiers Basin construction program to advertise the next phase, which will go from Berman to the Algiers Outfall Canal. That's going to get advertised for construction in this fall. And then we're also working with the Corps on the design of the last portion of the Gulf, which will be from the Algiers Outfall Canal to the Donner Canal. So utilizing those funds within the Algiers Basin. So that's a quick synopsis of those two slides.
First of all, thank you, Councilmember Drew. So my colleagues about the other issues like billing and the like, they had already asked a lot of those questions, so I didn't want to be duplicative. The reason why I have an issue with the one-stop shopping is because everybody in government has proclaimed that for the last 60 years. And it's been one-stop stop. You know, it's rarely has it been one stop, get done. So I think each department, each agency has to find another way so that one stop literally means one stop. And I haven't seen that to be the case anywhere, especially with municipal government. I want to thank you. It's been a marketable difference in terms of response. And I mean, really like to give credit to two people that are here. You have wonderful executives there, but in terms of communication and response, your agency has really taken it to the Joe Threat, Sarah Proteus level. And that really, and I'm being serious,
Yeah.
right? You have a reputation around this country as one of the great executives. Ron Spooner is, of course, always been one of the great communicators. But your team with Ron and Steve and the other people now it has been unbelievable how I would hope that you could tell them that I'm usually sleeping at 12 o'clock and 12:30 at night. You know, I'm an old man with young children, so I'm usually in bed or resting, but they will reach out. I had Mr. Nelson reach out at 1 a.m. One time, I didn't see it until I got up. So I like the aggressiveness. I like the fact that you guys are extremely responsive. But when you talk about, especially District E, the water main leaks, Lake Forest Boulevard, what's happening in Eastover with the breaks, we've had a few of them, and the boil water advisories. And, you know, my question, are we in a last chance, last ditch effort or a doomsday posture when you talk about system reliability right now? And I'm really serious about that because I've seen attention to detail. I've seen you guys go out there and do the work, but then I've seen the same things happen again.
I'll take that and then
And I think it's important because I spent 2 hours in a working meeting yesterday about governance and say statutes and the best thing we need to do with the water board and the municipality. And so for 2 hours, we talked about how do we move forward next? But are we moving forward with an agency at the end of the road? Or do we have a foundation to build on, especially when you talk about your infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I think the best way to describe our water main distribution system is that it's fragile. Half of it is 80 years or older, while exceeding the life, service life a water main can provide you. 30% are 100 years or older. What's happening now under the JIRR project is that we are able to steadily replace many of those very old mains, right? But the key here is that I've been preaching this is that once that money expires, we must have a replacement funding mechanism to allow us to keep replacing 30 to 40 miles of main every year in order to put us back where we need to have half of the mains well beyond their service life is just not acceptable. So it puts us in a critical place, right? Where we're losing water like crazy in an acceptable fashion. We're constantly chasing a leak, one leak after the other, and it's impacting the quality of life of our residents. So I know I'm preaching to the choir, but that program has to continue once the JR project funding expires.
And I can't tell you about your system. You guys are experts. I'm usually expert when I'm out of town because then people don't know I don't know what I'm talking about, right? But as it relates to your system, I think when you said fragile, I think it's important now, if I could give any advice, especially in terms of communication, especially after the work we spent a couple hours doing yesterday. How fragile is it? To what degree do we allow the public to know that this system, a system that we can't live without, from flushing our toilets to drinking potable water, I think it's time to let this community know how fragile this system is, how dependable it is or isn't. And I'm saying that based on you guys have responded to work.
Right.
You've been super responsive, right? But then the same thing happens the next week or the week after.
Right.
So you don't have to answer that question now. But I would hope that you could come up and say, this system is this fragile.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
These parts of the system are from 1 to 10. And I think that would give everyone up here and where. I think Councilmember Harris needs to understand system reliability in those areas around critical infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Councilmember King needs to understand system reliability. And I know we need that in New Orleans East. So if the next time we come together at some point, you could say, this is where this system is in terms of dependability moving forward, I think that would help.
Right.
The other thing for me is I appreciate the grass being cut on the canals now, like people would want to cut their own grass.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't always, and let me say, and folk may not think it's true, but the way people have cut grass on the bayou and uptown and versus the way they cut it in the Ninth Ward and Gertown and Central City and parts of the east, there was a noticeable difference. But what I see now is that, at least in some of the stuff while we drive around, they're picking up the trash and cutting the grass the way it should be representative of every parts of the city. And every taxpayer, every neighbor, and every business deserves that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the comments.
Yeah, appreciate the feedback.
Councilmember Moreno.
Thank you. Good morning to you all.
Morning.
I appreciate the presentation and the updates on a lot of critical pieces to the work of the Sewage and Water Board, but I don't think that we can leave this meeting without addressing some issues that were brought up by the media this week. And I actually can't even believe that I'm asking this question, but explain to me the situation around a apparent sex room at the Carrollton plant.
Thank you.
That will be my first question. And then the second question will be around the potential payroll fraud allegations that were also brought up in this report.
Appreciate the opportunity, Councilwoman Moreno. I would start with the first one, and I'd have to say that the source of that allegation is someone who had been suspended and then ultimately resigned. So the best way to describe that source is a disgruntled employee, and throwing allegations at a hearing where a reporter hears it and take those words and put them as a headline is extremely damaging to our utility without any validation of such a claim. There is a break room that existed that no longer does, though that there were some allegations at one point made and relative to other, I can't be, these are personnel matters where they were addressed, appropriately documented. Everybody who deserved attention did get their attention, and all actions were appropriate. Those things were not in the article, obviously, because it would not generate the interest that the headline that was used did. Relative to the fraud, there were abuse relative to overtime in 2019. The individual who was committing that fraud was addressed. The issue was addressed, and policies were changed, and added safeguards were created to impede such bad behavior. And again, I don't know if the story told that the policies were created in reaction to that one situation, and much more monitoring and tracking of that is happening ever since. That happens in Ron's shop, and he's extremely aware of how critical that is. I don't know what else to say other than a story that's written in a very dramatic way to get attention is just an unfair way to just describe how things are happening at the Sewage and Water. It's certainly not our DNA. These situations are not tolerated, and if they were true, they would have been addressed at the time, but they were not true.
On the payroll issues, was this information sent over to law enforcement or to the district attorney's office?
Typically, what we do by process is we go to the OIG in terms of an added layer of investigation and validating and then we typically trust them to forward that on if they think it's worthy of the DA involvement.
And that happened in this case?
I don't believe it happened, no.
Why not?
That's, I guess, a question for them. I mean, I don't have an answer for that, to be honest with you. From our perspective, the issue was dealt with relative to taking disciplinary action. Obviously, that one individual is no longer with us because as a result of those behaviors, and they were let go. there was a prolonged lawsuit involving that case. That's why, even though it happened in 2019, it wasn't really concluded till earlier this year, just because of I'm sure COVID interfered with the progress, but it seemed like it was a recent case, but it's not. It's 4 years old or 5 years old.
So do your policies say that if there is suspected criminal activity, that it'll be reported to law enforcement or the district attorney's office? And
don't
I
know if
count
it's-
law enforcement as the OIG as well.
Right, yes, I mean, we have a process where that details when we would involve the OIG as an added entity to investigate further and determine whether it's worthy to take it to a higher level or not.
Let me get back to the, I guess, to the break room, as you called it. Were you aware that there was this break room?
Not till the reporter started writing the story.
So you were not aware that there was a break room at the plant. Tell me about, like, where exactly was this break room, and, you know, who overall put it together? I just think it's kind of weird for, you know, for people not to know where there's a break room.
I hope you're not doubting my answer. And
Look,
I-
I'm just
telling
trying
you,
to, I
yeah.
think this is a really bizarre.
it is bizarre,
situation.
and I honestly don't think it's worthy of the time, but nonetheless, it existed in, maybe Ron can explain it better, within our facilities, but it was not as visible. And I've been in that facility multiple times, never once. And my purpose for being there is either I bring people to show them the fragility of our system, I'm meeting with employees, but never once encountered or even remotely were close to what would I describe a makeshift room that had a couch in it. And that's why I describe it as a break room. But Ron?
No, I mean, quick thing is that, although the quote unquote is a break room, that was a storage room. Now, if they converted that storage room to some other type, place of rest, that was it was on the second deck of the Sycamore Filter Gallery. Also up on there, we have what we call electrical gear up there. And we also have a bathroom facility up there. So to answer your question relative to the break room, I don't consider it a break room. It was at one time an old storage facility where you would store boxes and stuff in there. And then back, they could have put a couch or whatever that was indicated in that port in that storage room, and then consider that a break room. That room no longer exists. So as
Tell me about that. When you say that room no longer exists.
it's been demoed and removed.
Okay.
So there is no physical, there's no physical structure itself. So once the supervisor was informed of that, if I'm not forgetting, last year, September of last year, that this allegation, he did the right thing and just to demo the storage room altogether. And that was the best advice. So I went up there last week just to see for myself. There is no break room up there. That storage room has been demoed, and from what I understand, on that second deck, it is switch gear, electrical equipment, and a bathroom facility up there. And the storage room, that storage facility no longer exists.
Is there a more general break room that employees use?
Yes, there are offices in the Sycamore Filter Gallery where they use their office as the break room. So the office and the break room, when you say their break room is the office themselves. So there's a main office on the main deck where the staff monitors the equipment and takes a report. There are also other offices in their facilities. There's a maintenance office in there where they actually do repairs with some of the facilities. And then there are also other offices, two smaller offices up there. So there's not that many offices like talking about, but I just wanted just to little clarification. Yes, the article made it insinuate this type break room, which quite embarrassing on the operation side, but it was an old storage facility that someone had a chair or a couch as indicated in the report there. But that room no longer exists as of last year.
When you heard about that potential activity happening there, you know, people bringing other individuals in there for sex, according to the report, sometimes during working hours, sometimes during off hours. When did you learn of these particular type of allegations?
Well, I can tell you, 2 weeks ago when it came to my attention in the report.
Or less than 2 weeks. It was
Whatever
last-
that
Last week
timeframe
when the
was.
story was being written.
So again, it's an allegation. For me as the general superintendent, it's somewhat of an embarrassment to from a storage room to a break room as if we're you say a sex room or whatever. That's not the case. Our employees are much better than that, without a doubt.
Okay,
All right, so
I just want to understand
Yes,
the
ma'am.
timeline. So there was this storage room. You all find out about the allegations 2 weeks ago. Was the storage room already demolished by then, or did you do it after you heard the allegations?
no, the storage room was demolished last year.
Was demolished last year,
Yes.
so it's been gone for quite some time.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
Yes, ma'am.
Got it. And so when you heard the allegations 2 weeks ago, what type of investigation, have you been doing? I mean, if any of these situations, if this situation could in any way be true, I mean, there are a variety of obviously different problems with it, including sexual harassment, just of other employees potentially, if it's true, of other employees potentially knowing about this, that would be considered sexual harassment, being in an environment like that where people could be talking about a room like this. What steps have you all taken?
So again, to correct the record, I was made aware of it, and I think Ron as well a week ago when the story was written. I think it was either Thursday or Friday, but so a later part of last week when we heard that the story is being done. I made myself available to the reporter to make sure, understand what he's writing about and how we can offer our perspective with the hope that it would be a more thorough or complete story or more balanced. When he started sharing that information, I even asked him, can you give me he said, I have an evidence or a picture. I said, can you help me out so I can track it down? He did not, he would not. Nonetheless, I asked our safety team and we put a lot of inspectors on it. I involved the GSO's office. I said, I want you to comb the building. Tell me what you see. Tell me if there's anything that is unusual, what have you. And the report came back with there's no such thing. I said, well, something must have happened or something must have existed, and started looking into talking to folks. There was one case involving the person who's making these allegations that filed an actual harassment against an individual that was addressed, and that person was actually disciplined and fired. And that person was made whole relative to the expectations of responding to her complaint, addressing it, and applying the appropriate penalty associated with the perpetrator, and that was a close case. The manager at the time made the good judgment of closing the room because it was associated with that harassment case and dismantled it. It didn't rise to anything beyond that one case, and then that was a closed case. So later on, unfortunately, that person, and it's a pending case, it got involved with suspension because if you have filed a lawsuit or filed a complaint and you were being made whole, that does not exonerate you from you being upheld to doing the right thing independent. So leaving a post, for example, a critical place where you're responsible for is not acceptable regardless of what happened because they were not connected. So I'm just maybe giving too much
So
information.
the
there.
sexual harassment complaint, that was when?
Last year sometime.
So it was sexual harassment complaint comes in by this person. Somehow this room was somehow in this complaint, and then the room is demolished.
Yes.
I think Councilmember Morel, do you have follow-up questions?
I do. Couple of things. So first and foremost, obviously, we'd all prefer not to be here talking about this, generally speaking, besides the fact that it's like, tremendous internet fodder. I've already, in the course of this meeting, I've already been sent T-shirts and all their stuff that's being developed in regards to this. My question is a bit more basic. We have had, and you mentioned the Inspector General in particular, and I'm glad you brought him up. We have had several extremely damaging Inspector General reports. The one that comes to mind, the one the public still talks about, is the handicap parking. Is that we had several sewage and water board employees who were using manufactured handicap parking stickers to park in handicap parking spots, despite the fact the sewage and water board with the city paid for parking elsewhere. And the reason why that came to mind is that I think the frustration when I talk to people is that whenever we hear these damaging stories, we don't see swift and aggressive efforts by the sewage and water board to deal with the individuals involved. The most disappointing and damaging part about the handicap parking story, for example, is that many of the employees who use the handicap parking illegally are still employed and did not reimburse the city for doing it. And the thing is that when you look at these stories, you look at the handicap parking, you look at other OIG reports now and coming forth, it seems to be there's not a sense of urgency for this agency to address and deal with those people who are doing these things. Because to your point, Mr. Spooner, I agree. The vast majority of sewage and water board employees are not using break rooms for illicit activities, are not parking in handicap parking spots. But when we identify the individuals that are, there is no zero tolerance policy. And though I appreciate that this bill, I mean, because when you look at the video that was shown of the room, it's obvious this was not something that was professionally done and was thrown together by some employees. I don't think anyone is saying the sewage and water board condoned what was going on in that room, but the fact that there hasn't been an aggressive effort on the sewage and water board to find out how this room was converted, who was using it, and why the people who were using it weren't fired. And if any supervisors were aware of it, why aren't they fired? Like, it would help us to help you if when these investigations came out, there was an aggressive effort on sewage and water board to get to the root of these issues and to terminate all the people involved. That's what makes our job difficult, because though I appreciate after this lawsuit or this allegation it was torn down, this is not an instance in which one person was using this, nor was it an instance, I mean, it seems very makeshift, but some supervisor had to be aware of its existence, or multiple supervisors. I mean, you can't, I mean, at some point, you either have to have supervisors that are complacent and complicit or just idiots. And I don't think there's a lot of idiots. I think there are people who are like, I don't want to deal with the employees who are using it. I don't want to deal with the conflict. That's not leadership. So I think from my perspective, when we see all of these damaging stories come up, if sewage and water board was able to state definitively and aggressively how seriously these things were taken, how many employees were fired, how many people faced the repercussions of the incident, it would give this council and the public some confidence that there is a zero tolerance policy. The handicap parking thing still bothers me because the video is still on the web of the people involved in it, basically telling everybody to screw themselves. And to my understanding, the vast majority are still sewage and water board employees. And just speaking for that population, those people who need those, I mean, going to St. Joseph to pay your bill in person or to dispute it is a hassle. And when that story broke and you saw able-bodied employees just being lazy, the fact that the hammer of God did not come down on every single person involved in that was jarring to us. So when this story comes out, which is much more salacious, and like you said, probably not as rooted in fact as other stories, it becomes more believable because there is a reputation of lax enforcement when something comes to light. I think that, and I will never speak for Mr. Michelle because he can speak for himself, but when the OIG does these reports, comes back with these stories and has all the information showing a violation, it would help us tremendously if sewage and water board, when these things are brought to light, just cleans house, just fires everybody involved, We know that civil service makes that very difficult, but that doesn't mean the fight's not worth having. It's one thing if you try to fire people and civil service reinstates them. That's not on sewage or water board at that point. But when you don't try to fire them, that is on sewage and water board. So that's my perspective. Unless other council members wants to add anything, but I think it's an unfortunate story. It's more salacious than anything else, but I think people find it more believable because of other bad stories, if that makes sense.
You know, I think this is a lose-lose situation, Councilman Morel, but I have to tell you that I'm offended that you are making assertions that I don't think are accurate about me as a leader of the Sewage and Water Board, where you cannot ask any employee that we are not holding
I
people
want to get
accountable.
clarification that leadership comment was not directed towards you, it was directed towards the supervisors who might have been aware of these things
Okay.
and didn't do anything. That was
Yeah.
my point. My point was with the break room, whatever the room was, there's supervisors at the Carrollton plant who should have known about this or did know about it and did not report it up the line.
I agree
So
with that.
that was not a knock on you. That was a knock on the fact that as we're addressing this issue and the litigation involved, there is some supervisor somewhere who should be fired. And I think that it would help us to help you if you would have investigations to find out what supervisors knew or should have known of it and dealt with them as well as the individual employees specifically doing it. That's what that leadership comment was about, the supervisors of the Carrollton plant, because that room, though it is makeshift and thrown together, there's no way a supervisor didn't know of its existence. It's just not possible if they're doing their job.
And we will look into that for sure. And I also want to make sure that we all clear about the handicap sticker issue, because you bring it up often. I know it was an OIG report, but when you break it down and you connect that offense with firing, it just seems to me there's a huge discrepancy between the two. If I may finish my argument here for a second. These actions were taken by individuals on their own time. We took as swift and thorough and immediate action as we could as an agency who want to uphold their employees to a high standard of conduct. There was no way I had any legal right to take any action against that employee who committed a heinous act. It's one of my worst pet peeves, because I've had that experience in my older jobs. So it's a common issue, unfortunately. To take a disciplinary action against somebody who did something wrong on their own time outside work is just, there's a huge discrepancy between the expectations of what I can do and what you wanted me to do. And even the OIG's expectations, I don't think they were consistent, but we did everything we reached out to our partners at the DPW, who are the enforcing agents, who they probably had more venue to proceed or pursue some action or any restitution from these bad actors than me. But then Sewage and Water Board gets the blame for some bad acts by individuals on their own time. How is that a Sewage and Water Board brand that it gets tarnished and by everybody practically is beyond me? This is sort of, I mean, I'm here to accept any responsibility for things that I can manage, but to be held responsible for personal action is just, I think is unfair.
Well, I think I would only give pushback on 2 points. One, as I recall the OIG report, they were parking in these spots during their Sewage and Water Board employment times. So when you say it's on their own time, it's not on their own time. They were parking their personal car on their work time.
No, on their way to work before they clocked in. So they would use their sticker at the beginning of
Right,
the day.
but even using that very specific scintilla, the moment they clock in and they're walking back to their car, they're on Sewage and Water Board time.
Not unless they walk into the building. They're still private citizens committing a heinous act.
Two, have you updated your policies to reflect that any behavior similar to the handicap parking is grounds for termination?
No.
Why
I
not?
mean, there's a policy that dictates that they conduct themselves in the utmost highest standards, like any government agency.
So let's digest. So it is obvious, we can agree that parking in a handicap spot is in violation of city ordinance and city law with DPW, correct?
Correct.
In my experience in state government, and technically your employees are so quasi civil service state employees, violation of state or city law is grounds for termination. So the fact that in their personal capacity, they broke the law, you can fire them for that. That's what I said. My point is that it makes it easier for us. You see this with NOPD, for example, all the time, or the fire department. You have an individual, the police officer, who's caught, I think at one point, one officer was caught speeding across the causeway at 130 miles per hour in a police chase. NOPD did everything possible to fire that individual. I think that person was reinstated with back pay. However, they tried, which made NOPD established that was not an acceptable behavior, and they pushed the envelope using every mechanism possible to hold that person to account. The blame is no longer on NOPD in that situation, that's on civil service. My point being that it would help the reputation of Sewage and Water Board if you exhausted every single opportunity to pursue punitive, absolute zero accountability, zero tolerance pressure on employees who are breaking any laws, whether it be on the job or off the job, related or unrelated, because in any kind of civil employment, state employment, city employment, if you are breaking the law, whether it's on your offline or online, that's grounds for termination. So I appreciate you felt like at the time, based upon legal advice you were given, your options were limited. What I would say is, whether it be with break rooms or whether it be with handicap stickers, push the envelope and try to push for accountability until someone else makes you stop. Because at that point, you've exhausted everything the Sewage and Water Board can do. And that responsibility of putting that person back on the job, that's not yours anymore. That's civil services problem at that point.
Well, I believe we pushed the envelope quite a bit, and I'm happy to share with you cases that we won and cases that we lost because we pushed. But I just want to leave with one question. If a city employee now today is found to be using a handicap sticker illegally, would you fire them?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would absolutely, I'll put this on the record. Hey, city employees, if you're listening, if you're using fake handicap parking stickers, you should be fired.
I appreciate the consistency.
I just want to make one general statement, especially from the General Superintendent's Office operations side. You mentioned leadership management style. That article did rankle me without a doubt. Look, I've been a loyal employee for the Sewage and Water Board 28 years. In conjunction with 28 years, 22 of those years served in the military, 2 deployments overseas. And I preach to what I call the GSO senior leaders every week. Leadership is key. Management is key. And it's a trust factor. And we're asked the employees, do the right thing, follow the rules, and follow the policies. The craziness, you're going to get caught. It just doesn't make sense. And the point is, we're public servants. And the whole point of public service is city government, public service in the military. You're serving the public. We're serving the citizens of the city. And that's what we're going to do. So again, I just want to for the public to hear from the executive level that we're doing everything we can. And I will say Ron Spooner preaches every week to the senior leaders, and they can tell you, is that I trust you, number one, because I cannot do every job and push every button. And the citizen has trust in the Sewage and Water Board to make sure we do the right thing every day. That is really the key. So I just want to say that from a leadership perspective, because that's what good, effective, and efficient leaders do every day. And then it goes all the way down the chain to the lowest person on a totem pole, because I respect everyone. Doesn't matter if you're at the top of the food chain or at the bottom, respect is key. And exhibiting that nature, that leadership with respect, we want our employees to do the same thing to our customers, which are the citizens of the city of New Orleans. I just wanted to put that out there because that article did rankle me. Didn't like it, but we're going to learn from it, what the executive director did. And look, I mean, we are, the whole point is for leaders to come behind us and to keep this great organization going. That's just really my point. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I didn't know if you had a question. I'll
I
ask
do,
at the
I
end.
do. I'm gonna get off, or move on from the room. Poor choice of words on my part. So I'm just,
Gonna get out
I
of the
didn't
room?
realize until it came out of my mouth. All right, so the two employees, this is one of the questions I have. We've sort of raised this before. And please tell me if I'm wrong. According to the story, one of the employees' base pay was 70,000 and then with overtime earned 113,000. The other one had a base pay of 49,000 and then with overtime earned 136,000. So with overtime for the first one, 40% more in pay, and the second one, 175% more than your salary. I guess that sort of makes me think about two different levels of inquiry. First is, if the base is too low, what are we doing to increase it? Because if they're earning this much, then what's going on? And then secondly, if for whatever reason civil service is an impediment, something is a problem, that at what point is there a flag internally it's at Sewage and Water Board saying, hey, this person is way over, or what's going on? Because I think this has been a consistent conversation point for all of us, is that we recognize agencies saying people aren't paid enough, but then how do we right size to get to the right place?
Why don't you go first on that?
Yeah, I would answer relative to the pay. We have worked successfully with the Civil Service Department on some of the water purification operating classifications, specifically last year, where we worked with them to tweak the classifications based upon certification, and we did get an increase in that pay. So that's a success story, number one, in addition to the additional 5% all the employees got. So every little bit counts, number one. To the other issue with OT is the certain types of certification that an employee has to have in order to be a supervisor of that shift. We do have quite a few open slots, we call open positions that are very hard to fill. And some of them are still hard to fill, hence the reason where that increase in overtime takes place. So that's something we're working with, bringing more lower level employees. If we have an operator 2 and operator 3 license into the pipeline, we've worked successfully with Delgado Community College. We're doing additional training on certification that has worked out well, as well as other vendors that are actually trying to get more employees into the pipeline to get to that proper certification in order to work that shift. So that's just a quick synopsis, but part of it is really the certification and getting filling those vacant slots for those shifts in order for us to efficiently reduce that overtime.
Just in maybe a big picture, we believe that the solution to what we have now, with whether it's salaries, whether it's hiring and promotions, and just creating a better environment for our employees, is that we, as you know, we've started a plan, we call it the People Plan, looking for better models for our utility to allow us more autonomy, better decision-making, and allow us to create a better environment for our employees so we can solve these issues that we are currently, we feel where our hands are tied. And this is not an attack on anybody in specific, but we don't have the flexibility to dictate even salaries at times without going through a very regimented and scrutinized process to get us to where we need to be. In the meantime, you train somebody and you lose them for somebody else who pays them higher wages, and your pool is limited, and you have to rely on overtime to keep things moving, especially when it comes to critical operation like drinking water.
Yeah, I guess the point I'm trying to make though is, if somebody's base is 49 and then he got to 136, I mean, if you told me my base salary was $50,000 and I can make $150,000, I go, okay. So I just think what we need to do is right size the salary to start with, because it sounds like what's happening, either because of process or necessity, is that we're incentivizing people essentially to stay in a position, get a low salary, do your work as quickly as possible, then get into an overtime regime, and then increase your salary exponentially as a result. And I realize it may be the atmospherics that create the incentive. My just thinking is hopefully we can remove the incentive so that way the salary is more commensurate.
Yeah, and we agree with that, and we know that the system has flaws in it and creates these situations that are not desirable.
Thank you. Councilmember Green, thank you for your patience.
Interestingly enough, my observation one was going to be exactly what Councilman Jeruso says. We have on many council agendas a change in salary or even a change in specifications that has been made after an analysis by the Civil Service Department many times at our request. If there's something that we need to do to help in terms of maybe the salary should be 80, 90,000 and the person understand what the responsibilities are, because I think that sometimes having so many incentives relative to motivation relative to overtime just encourages people to do overtime as opposed to working hard to get the job done at the salary that exists right now. I understand there are concerns, but I just wanted to say that, the city council is available to assist in that regard if we have to ask the Civil Service Commission to make adjustments, if it is civil service.
We appreciate it.
Okay. I do want to state, first, let me ask, how many employees are there of the Sewage and Water Board?
About 1,300.
1,300. How many people in human resources?
I want to say maybe 24, 30.
Right.
I don't know the exact number. I'm sorry.
Would you say they conduct investigations on a regular basis?
We have a team. Yes, we have investigations are ongoing, sadly. I mean, there's none,
No,
we're
it's-
nonstop.
It's reality.
Yeah.
1,300 people. If
Yeah.
only 5% of that number were investigated, there would be 65 investigations
Yeah.
going on for the time period. So I understand that. And especially as a public employee and former public employee, those are going to be the instances. So 5% would be 65 people being investigated at any time. And I don't think that you have that number being investigated right now. It's something that has come up here at this particular instance. So I just want to say that and put in proper perspective, if you conduct those investigations in a thorough manner, you also use the Inspector General to conduct investigations. Please, in this particular case, so that there's no questions relative to quote unquote covering anything up, make sure that since the media, since there has been a big running with it, since there are t-shirts being generated, since there are comments suggesting that this is why my sewage and water board bill is high, that this investigation be thorough and that all the information be made available to the public.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd like to share one thing that we recently, as a beginning of the year, we've created a new position, a chief auditor. That's a new position, never existed, to bring an audit unit to self-audit. So now we have a qualified auditor who's creating his unit to get ahead of situations and do, whether it's overtime, whether any potential for abuse or misconduct, or even just bad processes that are inefficient. This unit is going to bring to us more continuous improvement abilities and opportunities and investigating more of an independent, because that person or that unit reports directly to the board of directors, not to me. So they have that autonomy to, choose what they audit and then bring the findings more freely and openly to the board.
Can you commit to the public that that unit would be involved with these questions that are being asked right now?
Absolutely. And they are actually already.
Right, I just want to make sure that the public understands that we'll eventually see a report which addresses the allegations of the payroll fraud and also the allegations of what happened relative to that room.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's important. I do want to take an opportunity to thank you for the presentations on Saturday, for the event that was attended by over 250 citizens interested in hearing more from Public Works and Sewage and Water Board. And they asked their questions and they got answers, and also maybe went back with more questions, but knowing how to get those answers. I want to thank the members of the public who showed up. 250 people at City Park's Arbor Room. It was open to the public. and they showed, and there was a great attendance, and there were great questions asked, and you answered all of those questions. You and Public Works answered those questions. I appreciate it. I want to thank you for the job fair. I had an opportunity to attend the job fair and see the hundreds of people who were there. I appreciate the fact that our citizens showed up because they were interested in working, and that over 190 of them, from what I understand, took the drug test, went into another room and took the drug test because they were serious about getting a job. I want to thank those citizens for taking that drug test, being serious about getting a job, and the Sewage and Water Board for offering it. Thank you very much for that opportunity. And we don't hear too many times, you have 1,300 employees, but we have vacancies. And I want to encourage our citizens to recognize that there are vacancies, and some of them are very good paying jobs that have opportunities for advancement. For example, you can start off cutting grass at the Sewage and Water Board and be trained on the equipment that helps you to move to another level. Am I right?
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay, look, I'm just pumping up
Yes,
the employment.
we appreciate that.
Just saying that we need to work these jobs that are available because they pay benefits and they also pay retirement, and there are also jobs that have a chance for advancement. So I want to thank you for the work that you've been doing. And Councilman Thomas alluded to it, and I know it's difficult. Throughout our district, we have pipes under the grounds that are 70, sometimes 80 years old. I see work that's going on. I see leaks come up from time to time, and it's frustrating to me that some of them stay out so long, you know, that there are leaks for so long. I want you to go to Fillmore right now and take care of that leak. That's one block off St. Anthony, if I can be very specific.
Yes.
And there are other leaks in place. I want our citizens to recognize that some of these issues could be addressed if we have more people working for the Sewage and Water Board.
Right.
But that members of the Sewage and Water Board don't wake up each morning saying, you know something, I'm not going to get that done. I think that the people that I've talked to, when I see them on the job site, when I see Kevin, for example, and others who are involved with work, when someone has run into a fire hydrant, I never knew so many people ran into fire hydrants and holes. But the bottom line is that that work is being done, and I appreciate that fact. So I also applaud you all for moving closer to the threat porteous level.
Mhm.
That's a very serious level. But no, I really appreciate the work that you've done. I know how hard it is, but I know that the city council is ready to work with you to address issues, whether it be the power plant, whether it be issues regarding getting personnel in place. Come to us as much as we can, especially our budget chair, to get issues resolved as we got resolved here. But I think that we are more than, the glass is much more filled than 50% relative to the positives that are going on in addressing our long-term needs relative to controlling flooding and to addressing issues such as the installation of smart meters, for example. Congratulations. At the time that we have initial discussions and the city council put on a little bit of pressure, there were 60% of meters being read. Now the number is much higher than that. That is a good thing. There are 140,000 meters in the city. We've moved in the direction of putting smart meters in place, working with the city council. That shows what we can do to work together.
Absolutely.
Every once in a while, there's going to be a story, for example, that makes it seem as if everything is bad. But there's a lot that's good that's going on. And I appreciate working with you. And I hope that you all, even more than us, will help to emphasize the positives that are going on so that people can understand in the midst of something that is maybe one or two times that is a big story, that there are a lot of other stories that don't go on.
That's correct.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. All right. Oh, wait, hang on one second. I'm sorry. Hang on one second. Mr. Burnside had a comment. Mr. Burnside, like yesterday, Granicus is still down, so I'll be keeping your time on my phone. And then, so everybody knows, we'll go to Councilmember Thomas's 2 voting items and then to DPW.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
I gotta say, I'm an old person and I don't really like new mics, but my name is Michael Eric Burnside and I'm 2215 Felicity. 2 minutes is not a lot of time, so I'll try not to waste it. I'm 59 years old. I moved here when I was 51 and I experienced my first ever boil water advisory here in New Orleans. I was 51 years old. I had lived 2.5 years in Germany, courtesy of the U.S. Army. I had visited Thailand and the Philippines and other places. I'd never experienced a boil water advisory. I was in the Alvar Library. I walked up to the water fountain thinking, you know, it's hot outside. I'm gonna drink a water. And there's a sign saying, don't drink the water. It's a boil water advisory. I thought it was so neat and unique that I actually asked the librarians if I could have the sign because I thought it was like a one-time thing that ever, you know, one-time thing in my life. But I've learned that boil water advisories are very common and boring, and most of the council doesn't really care either. And the citizens have been taught not to care. I read a newspaper article about Mitch Landrieu. Mitch Landrieu, back when he was mayor, had a nice little article in the newspaper, said 50% of the water we clean leaks out of our pipes. The reason we have boil water advisories is because normally the water goes out of our pipes into the surrounding dirt because of high pressure. But when the pressure is low enough, water that's in the surrounding dirt comes into our pipes, which is why we have boil water advisories. And some parts of the city would be very lucky to have pipes that were only 80 years old. Somewhere in the city, they dug up a pipe that was made out of wood. So there are lots of things to deal with, and none of them are very pleasant or pretty, and we don't really have 2 minutes to discuss all of them. Taking my lead from Councilman Green, I will say something, 2 things positive, one of which is thank you for having water during Ida. There were places in Texas that did not have water, and we had water, and we should emphasize the good, as Councilman Green has brought to our attention. And I'd like to thank Councilwoman Harris. She did a drive-through in my neighborhood this past week without me and with a sewage and water board employee, and they looked at 9 different water leaks. And my understanding is at least some of them are going to be fixed, which is a blessing to have a councilwoman who cares. We're not allowed to talk about personnel issues, but I would suggest that gross numbers be available to us, like how many people have you hired, how many people have you fired, how many openings are there, and have people left for better jobs, and just sort of a general gross overview of what's going on. Because we don't need to know the salacious details of everybody's personnel records, but we do need to have some idea of whether sewage and water board is going to collapse in the next couple of months, or whether we can all relax and hope that it's still there for us. Because without water, we don't have a city, and without sewage, we don't have a civilized city. So it would be nice to get some data from you, even if not necessarily what a newspaper reporter may be looking for. As far as the rest of it goes, I'm not really in favor of overtime either. It would be good workforce development if we started the guy that was cutting grass and let him end up being the director after 35, 40 years, you know, why not? That's the great American Horatio Alger story. You pull yourself up by your bootstraps with the help of city government. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Why don't we go back on the agenda to finish voting on items number 4 and 6. Councilmember Thomas.
Item number 4 is the requires a system platform for issuance of electronic traffic citations for cost effectiveness and for efficiency. NOPD currently uses Altus technology, and this 1-year extension is not to exceed $2,024,500. Do we need a motion on
I
this
think
at all?
we do. So you move.
I'll move.
We have 2 online comments.
Yeah, and we have 2 online comments.
All right.
It's been moved and seconded.
So the first item is, comes from Kip Holler, and they're VP of the Fulberg Mariney Improvement Association. And the comment is in opposition. Comment reads, what exactly is the DigiTicket software? Regularly attending MAX and non-PAC meetings at both the 5th and 8th districts. I have been told that the ticket writing program is not compatible with the NOPD devices, and the officers cannot utilize it. Why are we signing an extended contract for 12 months and paying over $2 million for something that cannot be used? And then the next comment comes from Casey Jerome Davis. They are in support. The comment reads, thank you for consideration of extending this contract as it is essential for the integrity of the court system and traffic laws. In 2013, before DigiTickets, officers were handwriting hundreds of traffic tickets a day. In the past 10 years, traffic citations have trickled in with the lowest numbers of citations in the history of the court. Lucky to receive 15 a day. The revenue from hundreds of tickets a day could be the equivalent of $7 to $9 million a year in revenue. Reinstatement of the full traffic divisions and patrol will assist in ending the blatant disregard of red lights, running stop signs, and using bike lanes and parking lanes as a third lane to speed past vigilant drivers. If DigiTickets have a cost, then we should have a return on income as well as a benefit from this service. To reinstate the full-size traffic divisions will ensure the service and protection that the citizens need on the roads.
Yobi, before you go to the next one, did that person list their name and address and any other information whether they were a paid actor?
So they are in the paid actor and they listed all their information.
Okay, just because that was a very thorough comment. So it just thank you for clarifying that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And then the completion of the comment, too often recently, some drivers are completely disregarding the shared use of the roads, causing harm and accidents to reckless driving practices. Preventing accidents should be a top priority, and the heavy presence of traffic officers on the roads issuing citations would have an effect on whether traffic laws are being abided by or disregarded. With bicycle lanes going in around the city, we need a higher presence of patrols and citations for those breaking the laws that are in place to protect the citizens who use those roads. That completes the comment.
Now, I respect all of the comments, and to the first person, DigiTickets, and electronic issuance does a lot of things. Trees, reliance on paper, its impact on our environment. So with that, we have a motion by me and a second by Councilmember Jeruso. All in favor, if you need.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes, any nays? Ayes have it, so ordered. Thank you. Number 6, please. Number 6 is a motion to authorize the council president to sign an amendment. Amendment number 5 to a previously executed contract between the city of New Orleans and SP Plus Corporation for continued service related to curbside management and enforcement for parking related issues, including meter operations, management services. This amendment extends the agreement to 6/2/24. The city pays an annual unit price per parking space of $550 and $164,175 a year for enforcement. Continuation of an existing contract. Move by me, seconded by
Green.
Councilmember Green again. Any online comments? No online comments. Then move in second, Chairman Jeruso.
Anybody dissent? Seeing and hearing none, passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll place it on the these items on the consent agenda as well. All right, next up is Department of Public Works, then Capital Projects, then Sanitation.
Yeah.
Good morning. You can start whenever you're ready.
Good morning.
Good morning, Council President, Councilmember Thomas, Councilmember Jeruso. Thank you for the opportunity to present for the infrastructure group. I'm Joe Threat, Deputy CEO for Infrastructure. And since taking over last year, we continued my mandate to the staff. Some over 700 staff under my purview was a element of continued improvement for all the departments. We've had a lot of challenges, as you know. We talked about a lot of them yesterday with property management. Some of those challenges is, equated to deferred maintenance and just love and care for the city that we have not done in a long time. Naturally, on the DPW side, we continue to work the JIR program to the Recovery Road program that will really do full depth reconstruction, care and maintenance of our drainage and streets and right of ways within the city. Like my colleagues at Sewer and Water Board mentioned earlier, the JIR program gave us the opportunity to really take what they say a deep dive, literally a deep dive into the underworld of the streets and roads in New Orleans. And we're finding that the $2 billion program that we have right now, we can probably multiply that times 5 to finish the rest of the city. I think when JRR program is complete, we'll complete about 10,000 blocks of the 20,000 in the city. And we're looking for more work. I think some of the solutions could be, to ask and request assistance from DOTD with infrastructure dollars to kind of focus on the DOTD right-of-way state roads within the city. And naturally, I've also talked to our IGR, Intergovernmental Affairs Group, to continuously talk to Congress about additional funds for the city. We have momentum. I think we're making progress. As you know, the infrastructure group, we have many long poles in the tent to include the recovery from Hurricane Ida, the restoration of Lincoln Beach, the buyouts and the building of Ag Street Solar with the Gordon Plaza residents that's moving right now. We'll talk about a lot of those in the next brief we have with DPW or capital projects and following up with sanitation. So with that, I appreciate the collaboration with the city council. I think most of the things we asked for that you've tried your best to get them to us so we can make progress. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Sarah McLaughlin-Porteous to start the brief with DPW.
Thank you, Joe, and good afternoon, council members. It's an honor to be here today and have the opportunity to provide you an update on some of the great work that the women and men of the Department of Public Works have been doing this year. I have a lot to share with you, and I'm very excited. And again, thank you for the opportunity. I do want to recognize our chief engineer for the Department of Public Works, Win Fan. He's here in council chambers today, as well as our budget director, Adrian Johnson. So the agenda that I'm going to follow today, I'm going to talk first about some of our division accomplishments. Again, we've got 7 divisions in the Department of Public Works, so bear with me. There's been a lot of great progress that I want to share with you today, so bear with me while I do that. Then I'll give you an overview of our budget snapshot, personnel, one-time funds, and then we can move into questions. Okay, so first division I want to talk about is our engineering and planning division. This is led by our chief engineer, Win Fan. They have reviewed more than 500 permits, and they're overseeing district right-of-way contracts that are happening in each of your council districts. They're overseeing Lakeview alleyway cleaning, pervious paving contracts, and much, much more. And I just want to go through very briefly some of the district right-of-way contracts. First, district right-of-way contract, for District A. The notice to proceed was given on April 3rd of this year. It's a $2.7 million contract. And the different kinds of repair types that we're doing are roadway failures, drain point repairs, incidental sewer point repairs, catch basin repairs, sidewalks, and ADA ramps. And to date, we've completed work on 12 locations. We've spent just north of about $1 million, and that work is continuing to progress very well. For District B, the notice to proceed is later this week, is 6:30. We're very excited to get that work underway. One of the first locations the contractor is going to be addressing is Poydras and Loyola. There's a drain line failure there. They won't be able to start it this week. It should be starting next week. But for the weekend, ahead of the weekend, we're going to have the contractor put a steel plate over there just to make it safer with all the increased vehicular and pedestrian traffic. But again, the contract value is $2.4 million. And they'll be addressing similar repairs that I mentioned for the District A contract. For District C, we have 2 right-of-way contracts. One is for the West Bank, one is for the East Bank. The notice to proceed for the West Bank will be July 7th. It's a $2.4 million contract. For District C East Bank, that contract is now underway. The notice to proceed was given earlier this month on the 16th. It's a $2.5 million contract. They've completed work at 2 locations. One of the first locations they addressed was the failure at at Charters and Ursuline, which caused, I know, some issues with getting around the French Quarter. So we're happy they were able to address that. For District D, our right-of-way contract, that contract's routing. The notice to proceed is scheduled for July 28th. It's a $2.3 million contract. And then finally for District E, that was one of the first contracts that we got underway. The notice to proceed was issued last November. It was a $3.1 million contract. We finished work on 17 locations and exhausted all the funds within that contract. So we're looking forward to starting another district right-of-way contract for E later this year. And then I want to talk a little bit about our maintenance division. So that's led by our principal engineer and maintenance division head, Eric Kelly. A lot of great progress in terms of our catch basin cleaning and asphalt patching around the city. One of the major accomplishments, I think, from last quarter, we've now commissioned one CCTV van and began on-the-job training so that we can do our own CCTV inspection, so our own videoing of drain lines in-house. I think this is a really great improvement that we have. We're working on our operator certification to be able to continue to do this. We've also commissioned 5 new flameless pothole patcher trucks. You've probably seen them. They're now operating in each council district. We have our operators now trained, and they're basically able to fill potholes with hot asphalt. It's much more efficient, and it's a much longer lasting fill that they're able to complete. We've held workshops with our key staff members to determine material, equipment, and personnel needs to be able to repair broken catch basin frames in-house. Currently, this is something that our outside contractors have to do, and we want to have that internal capacity to be able to do that. So that's something that Eric Kelly has brought to the group, and I'm very excited about that. And then in terms of our internal crews, they've cleaned about 1,100 catch basins, and they've filled about 16,500 potholes year to date. So I think those are some great numbers. Moving on to our programs and projects division, that's led by Khalid Saleh, who's our program administrator, and Katie Rodriguez, who's our deputy program administrator. We're starting to make some great progress in this division. We've substantially completed 6 projects worth about $56 million, some of the ones that have been really the most challenging in your districts. Those include RR08, Black Pearl Group B, RR09, Black Pearl East Carrollton Group A, RR21, Central City Group A, RR25, City Park Group A, and then 2 bond projects, DPW 68, which is Gardena, between St. Bernard and Paris, and then DPW 93 Octavia between Ferret and Claiborne. We also issued NTPs in the second quarter for RR123 Marleyville Fountain Blue Group H. The contractor is Murphy Pipeline, and this is going to be the first project to complete all of utilities using the pipe bursting method that we've talked about before. We also issued a notice to proceed for DPW 672. This is 2019 drainage improvements. So this is drain pair improvements that we're doing around the city. And then for the 3 district right-of-way contracts that I mentioned. We've also advertised 4 joint infrastructure projects. They're all of which are broken into task orders. They all have updated specifications. They all include pipe bursting. RR052 Gentilly North Group B, RR76 Lake Vista Group D, RR105 Lower 9th Ward Northeast, and RR45 Fillmore South Group D. So those are all on the street right now for advertisement. We also currently have DPW 60, which is the DSA bridge replacement. That's identified as one of the bridges most in need of replacement after inspection. The last thing I want to mention is our Max Pave contract. I know Ghassan alluded to that earlier today. So that is well underway. Fleming is making some great progress. We have Wingate as our contract monitor. Got about 400 cuts in progress. About 110 have been completed. The majority of those were on the West Bank. That's where we had the contractor start, but they are now working on the East Bank. So again, that's about $8.5 million in bond funds that we are investing in that quality of life issue. So we're very excited about that progress. Moving on to our traffic engineering division. So this is led by our interim chief traffic engineer, Kevin Jouar. Making some great progress here as well. Our sign shop crews have been working overtime to address the street name sign backlog. They've completed 284 sign installations so far, currently averaging about 60 extra signs addressed per week. So we're seeing a significant reduction in our backlog in the sign shop. In conjunction with the newly adopted ordinance to expand school zone eligibility to all schools K through 12, our staff is in the process of finalizing our priority list. That's going to basically govern the order in which we'll perform site visits and set signage for all of those new eligible schools. As part of this process, we're also going to be performing a check on every school that's eligible K through 12, just to ensure that all schools have consistent and appropriate signage by the start of the 2024-2025 school year. I will mention, because we've had a lot of inquiries, Ben Franklin is one of the ones that's going to be prioritized. It is a high school that's on a major high traffic corridor. Our staff is working to modernize both the sign and signal shops. Currently, we're transitioning them from a paper to digital record keeping. And that's going to enable easier tracking of our accomplishments, faster response to public records requests, and the ability to track how often specific areas are actually looked at by our staff. Lastly, All-Star has completed more than 4,000 streetlight repairs citywide through our streetlight repair and rehabilitation contract. And I'll also mention that contract is currently out for advertisement. In our mobility and safety division, this is led by Jennifer Ruley. A lot of progress here. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, DPW 573, is on schedule to be substantially completed by July 10th. Roadway striping is anticipated to begin the week of July 3rd. Very excited about that. We also held our final public meeting for the AP Toro Avenue streetscape improvements that happened just last week on the 22nd. Our accessibility dashboard that was updated in June to reflect curb ramp installation progress across the city. The percent of fully compliant intersections is now at 35%. That's up from 22% in 2018. The percent of partially compliant intersections also increased to 20%. That's up from 15% in 2018. And Jennifer really actually had a chance to brief Councilmember Moreno on these efforts a couple of weeks ago and talk a little bit about our accessibility dashboard. And I think we're going to be coming to brief you all at a future committee meeting and really kind of give you a look at what that dashboard can do. New Orleans East, our I-10 service roads safety study public meeting was held on the 6th of this month. The Department of Public Works and Office of Resilience and Sustainability have partnered with the New Orleans Regional Planning Commission to determine feasibility of walk, bike, and transit access safety upgrades along this state highway. And this study is anticipated to wrap up later this year. Our division staff undertook a pilot using dynamic speed display signs to determine speed management effectiveness at 4 locations. We looked at Jefferson Avenue, North Rampart Street, Chantilly Drive, and North Robertson Street. And based on this pilot, DPW is exploring options to purchase and deploy additional speed display signs. And I really think of this pilot as a precursor to the ARPA-funded speed management program that we will have underway later this year. DPW, in partnership with the New Orleans Health Department, ITI, and Resilience, released the first online New Orleans transportation safety dashboard in May. This new dashboard is available to the public and elected officials and tracks traffic crash trends and statistics for the Orleans Parish. And then finally, DPW began work on $85,000 in priority crosswalk maintenance striping, recently on Ferret Street between Napoleon and Nashville, upcoming on Magazine, Jefferson to Nashville, Canal, North-South Claiborne to Elk Place, and then Cleveland Street, South Claiborne to Elk Place. Our parking and towing division, led by our parking administrator, Zaporia Edmonds. A lot of success across this division, despite resource challenges, but the enforcement staff has improved response time and ability to promptly address quality of life issues. Part of, I think, the reason this happened, we've gotten new equipment in that division. We have 4 new tow trucks. We have 9 new patrol vehicles. I think this has really helped with morale, that staff has the resources that they need to be able to do the work. Their partnership with the Violent Crime Reduction Task Force has been continuing. It's been very successful. Over the past several months, there have been a significant increase in the removal of abandoned and junk vehicles from the public right-of-way. Numbers earlier this week were 797. So we know that's a nuisance. It's a major quality of life issue, and we've had a lot of success there. Our brake tag enforcement has improved compliance with vehicle inspections, advanced technologies being deployed in problematic areas to improve enforcement of bike lanes, oversized vehicle parking, and hazardous parking conditions, all with the goal of improving compliance. And then finally, our Ground Transportation Bureau continues to make progress despite limited resources. We've got staff shortages. Obviously, our inspectors are working, as all of our field crew are, in this extreme heat. We are currently working with civil service to reevaluate the requirements for the administrator position. This continues to be vacant. Currently, no one who has applied has actually qualified for the position. So I do want to thank our office manager, Yolanda Brownsfield. She's been really helping with some of the leadership, as has our lead investigator, Erica Giroux. So I appreciate all of their hard work as we continue to rebuild the GTB. That said, we still have accomplished processing of many permits, 824 driver's permits, 232 tour guide permits, 593 taxi cab CPNC renewals, 705 school bus renewals. So a lot of work going on, but we do still have a pretty significant backlog within the Ground Transportation Bureau. I have authorized overtime hours for our investigators. They're working an extra couple hours a day to help the office staff with processing some of those applications.
Before you go to the next item regarding ground transportation, I'm sure you
Yes.
may have followed some of our conversations we had during the safety and permits hearing. The frustration I'm hearing for particular CPNC and pedicab holders is there is a host of illegal vehicles running through the French Quarter and CBD for commercial purposes. And there's increasing frustration because there is a process, a very involved process for getting a CPNC or getting going through transportation to get properly permitted.
Mhm.
And when they're out doing their job and next to them is somebody who obviously is not going to ground transportation, there seems to be a game of circular firing squad on whose responsibility it is to shut down these illegal vendors.
So the responsibility is Ground Transportation Bureau, and I can tell you, we have limited staff that are doing the actual inspections. Those are the same staff who are out in the field doing enforcement. We have 3 new investigator hires that are in process. And this is really we have to have at least 3 or 4 investigators at the inspection station at a time. Once we hire a few more, we'll be able to spend more time out.
But with some of these vehicles, like the golf course, for example, these are not legal, period.
Yeah.
So these are not people who are going to come to get an inspection. They're just going to operate illegally. Whose responsibility is it for someone who is operating in an area that ground transportation theoretically regulates, who just has no intention of coming to get an inspection?
Are we talking about golf carts?
Golf carts,
I
we're
mean,
talking about the electric scooters, we're talking about everything. I'm talking about even the pedicabs that are pulling floats. Like, whose responsibility is it to regulate those individuals? Because, like I said, the challenge is for those individuals who are following the law, who are dealing with, are being patient, dealing with ground transportation in their process. In the same token as they're following the law, remitting their fees and taxes to the city, they have individuals who are in their same space who are operating wholly illegally. Whose responsibility is it to investigate and shut down those operations?
so our response or our role in that, DPW's role for scooters, for any kind of vehicles like that are left in the public right of way and are abandoned, we go and collect them and we keep them at the maintenance yard. We release them for a fee, if people
Well, let
come.
me ask you a question. Why are we releasing them?
I mean, it's happened once since I've been in this role, but I don't,
I guess the question is, and I hate to do this because it adds complications. It would seem like almost all of these vehicles on their face are illegal.
yes.
Obviously, in the city of New Orleans, it is not legal to drive a golf cart, period. I guess my underlying question is, if I am a vendor, if I'm a cab, if I'm a pedicab who sees one of these people operating illegally, who am I supposed to call for an investigation to shut down the practice? Is it ground transportation or is it NOPD?
I think it's NOPD. We collect things that are left, like scooters. We release them only under the condition that they will no longer operate in the city.
Okay, so I guess, and I've kind of beat my head against this wall, looking across the nation as to how they deal with these issues.
Yeah.
And there are municipalities across the country that are simply booting everything.
Mhm.
And what would prevent the city of New Orleans just from going out and when we find any of these vehicles operating illegally to seize them? Or let's say, for example, you see a bunch of golf carts parked on a curb, let's say in the French Quarter. What prevents someone like a meter maid from calling a contractor? Because all that booting we do and towing is contracted, correct, with third parties.
Mhm.
What prevents us from entering contracts to boot or tow? Because obviously, if a golf cart's parked on a curb, it's on its face illegal. It should not be on the street of New Orleans. It is not permitted whatsoever. What prevents us from having someone contact one of our third-party contractors to seize the property? In other municipalities, if they see people riding electronic scooters, the reality is, my understanding is that we do not have a blanket. It is not permissible to operate electric scooters in the right of way on the streets or sidewalks. So if you're running an electronic scooter and riding on the street, you're breaking the law. What prevents us from having a third-party contractor? We have a meter maid or officer ticket the person, have them roll around the French Quarter, pick them up, impound them. There's no requirement we give that scooter back whatsoever, because it's already seized. That person has the opportunity to go through their hearing at municipal and traffic court to make the case they weren't breaking the law, but if they were, that is now city property to get smashed. So I guess from my perspective, I don't know if we need to do additional laws. I don't know if we need to give you more authority to contract out to third parties, but we need to figure out what the process is going to be. And I mean, obviously, that's why, particularly with the golf carts, with the floats, with the like, you don't necessarily need an NOPD officer out there. If that golf cart's parked on a curb, there's no reason why a third-party contractor can't just pull up, hook it up, and take it.
Yeah.
Right, and I think it would be, you know, similar to the junk vehicles where they can either tow, and then naturally, if we took them to a yard, we could have auctions.
Right.
And, you know, provide revenue to the city. But it's a problem. I mean, because I get emails, me and Sarah, from the residents all the time, and especially the taxi and the other commercial vendors that say, hey, it's golf courts, it's carts, it's
Why don't we come together and do a solution? Why don't you guys come back to us? If I'm happy to work with Councilmember Thomas to put together something, but if you guys need contracting authority to get a third party, other municipalities are doing it, just start seizing the vehicles. Because I'll tell you, what'll quickly discourage the behavior. If you're renting scooters and the scooters are all gone, you're going to stop renting scooters. If you're renting golf carts and they're all gone, you're going to stop pulling up the golf carts. But I think the reason why this activity has proliferated is because we aren't doing anything about it.
Yeah, and I can tell you, we have proactively done some sweeps where we've gone out to collect some scooters that have just been, you know, stationed in the public right of way. We have.
Well, and I appreciate that. That's kind of at the end of the activity. If a
Yeah.
tourist is riding a scooter down the street, they need to realize they're breaking the law.
Yeah.
And if we have a host of scooters rolling around the quarter and we have someone out there in enforcement just saying, hold up, wait 1 second, car rolls up with a flatbed and says, thank you for the scooter. Here's your citation. First off, that tourist is not going to get that scooter back. It's not their scooter. And I think if we just begin that practice and we start to shut it down proactively and succinctly, naturally those businesses will go away because the benefit of running a several $100 electronic scooter to only have it seized and sold at auction, it's no longer a profitable business model. But I think we have to have a plan, and any plan we can do that's not relying upon an OPD, which is significantly stressed, we should do that. I do appreciate, I don't want to put meter maids in a position where they're dealing with a business that's operating illegally that gets very aggressive. And I don't think necessarily beyond notifying ground transportation and our vendor who's going to do the seizure, they need to be involved, but they're on the streets, they see it.
Mhm.
And it would be much easier for them and for us, practically speaking, if a meter maid sees a guy running a bunch of golf carts, they just radio it in, the contractor come by and starts taking it. And if there's difficulty taking it, just starts booting them. Because the reality is that if they boot the vehicles and the person's hostile, we can have them revisit the location with NOPD later. But as long as we end the behavior, it will stop it from proliferating. Because I mean, the quarter has gotten worse over the last year and a half because we have not done enforcement.
Yeah, and we look forward to working with you, somewhat like with Councilmember Harris and Thomas on the secondary salvage, you know, to work a plan to eradicate it. But it's a big problem for us.
Okay, well, Councilman Thomas and I will work with you and trying to figure out a solution on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple more things I wanted to share. So our project controls, which is one of our supporting divisions that handles all of our data, they've been working in conjunction with ITI and contracted with a company called Cyclomedia to produce a digital capture of the city's 2,000 miles of streets. They did 360-degree imagery, kind of similar to Google Street View, but at a higher resolution. And they collected that by driving the streets with vehicles equipped with a specialized camera. And the equipment also used LiDAR data to capture a 3D model. And to be able to do and to be able to simulate flooding scenarios, excuse me. Cyclomedia won the asset collection contract via an RFP in December of 2022. And the data collection drive surveys were conducted January through March of this year, and the data was fully delivered in May. And in addition to the imagery and elevation capture, public right-of-way assets were extracted from the imagery and converted to vectorized GIS data sets. An example of these data sets are street signs, utility poles, traffic signals, streetlights, catch basin, manholes, ADA sidewalk ramps, and fire hydrants. And each element of each access includes the latitude and longitude, ground elevations, and other attributions that are pertinent to this asset. So what this essentially means is we're going to be able to have all of our assets that are in the public right-of-way managed in an asset management system. I know I've talked about this before, but I want to mention it again because I think this really is the future that's going to allow us to be able to do preventative maintenance on all of our assets. So the data sets collected in the Cyclomedia effort, along with the data sets DPW has built in-house, are the foundation for the next effort of our asset management software acquisition. And the RFP for asset management software is currently under development by both DPW and ITI, and it's going to be advertised later in 2023. So we're very excited about that. Just moving into our budget snapshot. So here's our 2023 budget snapshot, including personal services, other operating, and the infrastructure maintenance fund. General overview is we're spending our dollars. We're on track with our personal services spending with about 5.8 million remaining for the year. 14 million has been spent through Q2, including 10.4 million for various right-of-way assets, various right-of-way work, and then 2.4 million for ticket writing, 1 million for our SP Plus contract, which just came up for the amendment earlier, and then $500,000 for Duncan Solutions. And then just going into a little bit of an update on where we are with our personnel. So in 2023, we've hired 13 people, 8 of which were hired in the Q2. So we are making some developments. We currently have 16 hires in process, including an engineering technician in our traffic division, 3 maintenance laborers, 2 equipment operator 2s, 3 equipment operator 3s, 2 public works supervisors. So this is all in our maintenance division, and then 4 tow truck operators, which we are really in need of. We have 6 tow truck operators currently, so we really need to beef up that division. DPW is budgeted for 149 FTEs. We currently have 147. This is separate and apart from our grant funded positions in our programs and projects division, which consists of about 61 unclassified people. And then we've got 21 open requisitions. It equates to about 37 positions. Slide 9 actually shows 35, but we've added 2 more since then. Okay, I'm going to go into just a brief overview on where we are with our one-time funds. So we have 10 million, as you all know, for cleaning of our drainage system. We are making progress here. We have set aside 2 million for contract monitoring. The RFQs for the 2 contracts that we're going to be putting out for our drainage cleaning should be advertised today. And then the 2 contracts for drainage improvements, drainage cleaning should be advertised next week. They are currently with purchasing. We've separated those into 2 separate contracts. One is for AD&D, Council Districts AD and E, and the other is for Council Districts B and C. So again, those should be advertised next week. We're very excited to have a contractor on board and getting to work soon.
Sarah, I've got questions here.
Yeah.
So, there's 72,000 catch basins in the city and 8.2 million linear feet. Last year, we cleaned 2,055 catch basins. I think this year we're on pace to clean 2,326. I'm worried those numbers are very low.
So I agree with you, they are low, and that's just our internal crews. So we rely heavily on contract support to do the bigger numbers of catch basin cleaning. I would say our maintenance division has about half the field personnel that I would like it to have, and we're trying to double that. We have about 18, 19, and we need to be at least double. So we have a dedicated crew that's cleaning catch basins and doing asphalt patching in each council district. Keep in mind, we did have our emergency catch basin contract that finished earlier this year in March and did address about 7,000 catch basins. So I think, you know, we will be pretty close to hitting the goal of about 10,000, you know, catch basins this year, between what our internal crews can accomplish and what we'll be able to accomplish through the ARPA contracts. And I will add that we are estimating, obviously, we're gonna have to see how the bids come back, but we're estimating that they're gonna be able to address 575,000 linear feet of drain line between those contracts.
Right, but that's over 3 years though, right?
I'm sorry?
Is that over 3 years?
No, those shouldn't take 3 years.
So the 575 is for 1 year?
It's about a year.
Okay, but, I mean, look, I just want to make sure we're using numbers and resources correctly. So
Yeah,
internally, we are on pace to clean a little over 2,000. You said that once all of this catch basins are done by outside, we expect another 7,000 to be done.
yeah, and we'll see how the bids come back. That's an estimate, but I think, you know, an important point to make, cleaning the catch basins is important, but we also have to make sure that those lateral lines, you know, the lines that go to the manholes, that all of that is clean and without breaks. Because if we just focus on cleaning the catch basins and not those lateral lines and main lines, you know, we're not accomplishing as much as we could for the drainage system.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the other thing too, is 575,000 feet in isolation is a lot, but there's 8.2 million feet. So, you know, you're looking at like almost 20 years if you're using 575
Mhm.
as your benchmark. So I guess I'm just I agree with you that we need to do the whole thing. It's not just the catch basins and it's a linear feet. If we're looking at potentially, again, we have 38 million in the budget and it looks like 14 only spent year to date, with remaining 37. We have 13 that hasn't been spent yet. It looks like there's another 7 million that will be over. Can we just plow that money back into catch basins and linear cleaning? Because again, like, we all want to be on the same page and make sure the numbers are working out.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more.
And then if everything's advertised today or
Only so the contract monitoring, so since we'll have 2 cleaning contracts, one for, I think it's AD&E and one for BNC. Each of those will have a contract monitor, its own. Those 2 RFQs for contract monitoring should be advertised today, and then the 2 contracts for cleaning next week.
okay, so assuming contracts for cleaning are next week, we're looking at
30 days to award,
Right.
and then obviously, you know, we'll do what we can to try to expedite those contracts once they're awarded.
yeah, I mean, again, we're in hurricane season, so whatever we can do to speed things along. I know we had this conversation yesterday. I would prefer to be doing as much as we possibly can. When it comes to lights, I have a question. We keep on being told that lights related to Ida can't be fixed until FEMA money comes in. Is there any way we can document that a light is an Ida related one and then fix it and then be reimbursed on the backside, so we're not waiting?
That's a good question. I mean, part of the challenge is I wish we had more competition in terms of our, you know, streetlight contractors.
Right.
So while we have the repair and rehabilitation contract out, it's probably going to be the same contractor that would be doing that work. So that is part of the reason why we haven't put that out to bid. It's not that the PW, I think, has been approved by FEMA. That's already happened.
Right.
We just haven't put that out to bid. I will say our contract monitor Legacy, they're tracking all of those outages. There was a much higher, I think there was about 2,500 that were identified as being caused by Ida. And we've seen that number to continue to drop as they're making other repairs, because some of those are attached to the same feed points. And so when they repair those feed points, it's actually impacting those lights. So,
And Councilmember, we've had back and forths with FEMA since Hurricane Ida, and naturally we monitored the ones that were out as a result of the storm. We had a bunch of RFIs, requests for informations, come back and forth with the federal government. And I think we've solidified the exact number because Naturally, we have different events. We had the power outage. So I think we're there, and what I can do is provide you the information, the exact amount of lights that we're gonna address with Ida.
Yeah, I just, sorry, just very quickly, it's just, we're getting close to 2 years.
Right.
And so I realize a hurricane like Katrina is of such significant
Mhm.
magnitude, 2 years is within a reasonable span, but it's getting hard to tell people. you
It
gotta wait.
is, and we had issues on Ida with insurance adjusters and with FEMA on accepting a lot of the damage assessments that we provided. So I think we're there now. We've completed everything. We've got the PWs in place and obligations are happening, and we're gonna start work soon.
Okay. Relevant to Councilmember Morel's question about what's going on in the quarter and other places, is DPW issuing any citations under its deputization authority?
No,
All right, I think maybe we should have a question or discussion rather about whether or not that authority is needed anymore. And I'm not doing it to be punitive, it's just if DPW has concerns about what's going on, or there's other agencies that are better suited, then it seems like we're vesting authority to do something that DPW just said. It'd be like me, I'm a lawyer, you don't want me doing your engineering work for you.
yeah, so we did submit a request to have a special rate of pay.
Right.
We have 3 inspectors who've been deputized. That first request was denied, and I think we were advised that we needed to do a thorough job study that would include that special rate of pay request. That's currently with civil service, so that was part of the challenge. And you know, why it hasn't moved forward, I think, in my understanding, I don't know that any of the departments have actually issued citations. That's what I understand.
Okay, well, again, when I realize I'm coming full circle on catch basins again. I really feel like we need to make this a priority because I worry, given the math of how many there are and how much linear feet, we're looking at cleaning everything once a generation or close to that. And I don't know that we can do it every year, but I think every 3 to 5 years.
That was absolutely the goal, to get to a point where we're on the 5-year rotation.
Okay,
For
well,
doing that.
I just want to make sure, as we check in, that we kind of look towards that, because I think at mid-year budget adjustment, and if my math is right, that it looks like there'll be about 7 million underspent in operating, that's kind of plowed back into catch basins and linear.
Yeah, right-of-way contracts in addition to that, so
Yeah.
we can get those underway. But I think also, you know, I think you're gonna next quarter start seeing us, you know, spending some of our ARPA funds, and if we are given some additional funds, I think it was 17 million
Right.
initially. That's what we would want to put that toward contract support for drainage system cleaning.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Harris.
Hey, Sarah, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
First of all, thank you for always being available day, night, weekends. Matt wrote 12 questions. I'm not going to get into all of them, but I do have some specific questions about the JIRR project management. What is the status of that company coming in and
The
actually?
PMO?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're really excited. We're eager to get them on board. It's in the contract execution phase. So
Right.
it's,
procurement.
It's not in procurement, it's in law right now, so we're waiting for it to come out of law. I think one of the vendors reached out to me today. They're anxious to get to
Yeah.
work. And I think the timing will be perfect, because once we get out of law, get the contract executed, it'll be the same time that we're getting ready to award these next 4 task order contracts that are coming out. So it's in process. We've done everything we can do. It's in law right now.
Okay, on that point about project management, I mean, you know, Central City, I don't know the groups, still have beautiful ramps, but no actual accessibility because the asphalt hasn't been poured to make them accessible. Council Vice President and I did a roll along with Mark Raymond, and I was like, hey, you can't traverse the streets in Central City.
yeah.
You're wheelchair bound because the ramps are not completed, and it's been like that for the past 8 months, 6 months. So those need to get completed. And I'm hoping a project manager can come in and actually assess and get things completed. I know we're doing a Central City ride along, I think after the 4th of July. I can talk about LaSalle and Simon Boulevard and all that mess right now, but I won't get into it. I'm hoping that that's on track to get completed as well.
Yeah, and I think, Matthew had requested a site visit at LaSalle and Third.
Yep.
And so that's gonna be coming up in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it's troublesome that it still is not completed.
I will tell you that, I have my, 180-day look ahead for project completions, and Central City B is on there.
Okay, I hope so. Substantially complete or complete?
Yeah,
complete?
substantial completion, later this summer.
Okay, well,
Yeah, and to your point, council member, as you know, as we move, I think it's 8 months now, for our period of performance, the last one we got from the federal government. It's very critical that we get out of those wave ones and wave twos.
Yeah.
I've echoed that, as you may know, on my field visits to the construction companies, that if you're not finished with your wave one, wave two work, and you're at capacity, you won't get new work. And I've talked to law and talked to procurement about that. When the bids are open and somebody's behind, they won't get new work. So, we've got the pedal to the metal. We want to finish those projects in wave 1 and 2. They were so cumbersome. Those were the ones that we issued, hindsight, 200 blocks at a time. And it looks like nothing's moving because the work crew is 100 blocks away doing something else. And it was just the wrong way to do business.
it doesn't look like nothing's moving. Nothing is actually moving.
Right. It's
I
not-
mean,
Right.
it's the reality.
And to that construction company working that might have other projects in the JRR. That was a mistake.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna stay in the field until we get this work done. Your area, Central City, and I've been driving through Milneburg is another one.
yeah.
Where I saw wearing course down on the Legion and nothing's happening. So we'll be back out next week, taking a look at all these different areas.
Okay, on the issue of notification, we had an issue where no parking signs were put out. People in the neighborhoods are elderly, disabled, or just feeling unsafe because of the state of the city. And so no parking signs were put out and there was no actual anything happening.
Carondelet and Second. I've been hearing
One
that from my
area.
brother.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
what is the status of a sort of text message notification so people can get updates like they do for water outages, like they do for energy outages?
Yeah, I mean, I think Roadwork NOLA is doing more in terms of text messaging. I think if there are bigger outages, that affect multiple neighborhoods, those will certainly go out via text message. I think they're just trying to avoid, putting out a text message about a water outage that only affects a little area and then people getting frustrated and unsubscribing. So
Yeah.
I think they are trying to expand the text message that they put out.
Can you target based on, I guess, address?
Yes, but
Or
only
zip code?
only if people go in and register with their address. You have to do a full, go into the system, actually put your address in there, and then they can draw polygons and send them out to specific areas.
So maybe it would be a good communications effort, which your communications
Absolutely.
are getting better, by the way, your social media, just to get people to understand that if they sign up, they
Yeah.
can get these text messages that are targeted to them. I do have a question that is very specific. There was damage caused around Coliseum Park by a contractor
Yes,
that put out some streetlights.
yes,
And those streetlights still haven't been fixed apparently.
yeah.
When a contractor causes this type of damage, are they fined? Number one is the question.
No, probably, no,
Should they be?
they wouldn't be fine. I think, it's major construction. So utilities unfortunately are going to get damaged. There are conflicts that happen in the field. For this particular one, there was some question about whose responsibility it would be to fix it. And there was some back and forth with Entergy. But I think we have now, as of yesterday, come to the realization All-Star has to do that repair work. I know they were out there yesterday. I'll follow up with them today to see what the path forward is.
Okay, I appreciate that. On the 797 towed vehicles, which is great. Do you know what your total backlog is? Or could you get me the number?
Yeah, I can get you that for our abandoned vehicles. Yeah, I can get you that number.
And for the new tow trucks that you all have purchased, are you able to tow large abandoned vehicles or vehicles that are causing nuisance like RVs? We're getting a lot of reports about RVs that people are staying in that are parked illegally.
Let me get you an answer on that.
Okay.
I want to make sure I'm right.
All right. Again, I won't get into the specific questions that I have here, but I'm sure you and I will be talking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Harris, I mean, when you talk about communications, I know I've been in a conversation with Councilmember Jeruso about communications, and in the field visits, we're talking more. I mean, as a team, Sewer and Water Board, the contractors, how we communicate, and how that communication gets to road work. And that's what's important, because if road work doesn't have clear data to transmit to the residents, then it's no data really. And that's where the frustration point is for us. And we're working on that. I'm actually thinking about, when we're talking about distribution of notifications on water cutoffs or, you know, street closures, that we're taking construction crews out to hand out literature. And it just doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know why we don't go to nonprofits like Thrive or contractors or something else to get some support in doing that effort. And that's something we're working on right now.
Well, I would support that. However, you can get more people employed. I know Councilmember Green is the full-time employee council member, but I do think, and I know you have some innovative ideas around our unhoused population and paying them to pick up tires and other items, so that, you know, there are other nonprofits that can really use that work. But to that point, you know, I got on Tammy Jackson about One Stop and saying, just look on One Stop. I will say that we haven't, and Matt can correct me, but it's been a minute since we've gotten the terse reply of, look at road work, right? Because road work isn't detailed. So we're actually getting better communication from your office, more specific communication rather than the terse response of just look on road work. So again, I want to thank you for that. Nikki Polk spoke at my town hall last week and was really proficient with her responses. And again, thank you for all that.
And we had and Sarah could amplify this, we've had road work crew, Sewer and Water Board, you just mandate customer service. It's about customer service. One of my examples was when if you go to Delta Airlines, you get ready to get on a flight and you're upset. She'll say, let me talk to your supervisor, okay? I want to know about it. Sarah wants to know about it. And at that point of frustration, we need to know what's happening. Khalid, our program administrator, and the chief engineer, we need to get involved and solve the problem. And that's where we are right now.
Councilmember Harris, I did just check in with our parking administrator, and if there is an RV or a pod or something in the public right of way we can't pick up with one of our own tow trucks, we can utilize NOPD's tow list to be able to do that. So we should be able to have it removed. And she's working on the backlog numbers for you.
Councilmember Green?
A general statement, because I see you all often, so I want to tell you that I appreciate the fact that I'm able to see you in the community, just like on Saturday. Your presentation was great. The meetings that we have with the various entities involved with the work that is being done, especially on street work, is very much appreciated. I interestingly have a suggestion to you. Citizens feel better when things are getting accomplished, and I share with them a lot of the accomplishments, whether it be a 5-block stretch that was done, or whether it be a significant project that is started, and we do a good job with the ribbon cutting. When something is finished and it's relatively small, share it with the world. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yep.
Share it with the world. You all have done a significant amount of street work in Seabrook. Only people in Seabrook know about it, and you've done significant work. You finished Gardenia. I know that Gardenia was just a stretch, but at the end of the day, send out a press release and I'll send it to the world.
It's a beautiful stretch. I was out there the other day.
Yes, great job. And people need to see it. And now other work is being done in that area. There is enough that I can certainly say that I want to see done, but at the end of the day, a lot is getting done. And I think the public feels good when they see some of those things that are being done, recognizing that we have 1,000 blocks throughout the city that are being worked on. What's the number of blocks being worked on in the city right now?
Roughly 3,000.
3,000. So we have 3,000 blocks being worked on the city, and people see that all the time, but sometimes they don't see enough of the positives. And I want our citizens to recognize that, yes, it's taken a while and we're doing comprehensive work, but that their tax dollars are not only at work, but being finished in some projects. And I just want to share with you all that to whatever extent your public relations people can help get that word out more. Let's tell people what's being done. Don't wait until the Milneburg 145 blocks is finished. Do something in the meantime.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you,
Very nice.
Councilmember. And it's not only the JRRR program that we're working, but we also have the Department of Transportation doing a lot of work on the state highways in the city, and we've got Sewer and Water Board doing transmission mains and sealer work. Another point just for the council to know that I've got the FEMA administrator coming back on July 13th for another mayor's visit and update, and hopefully the projects, I think, Sarah, that we have right now might push our period of performance, that federal performance to 25. So fingers crossed, and I'll update you on the results of his visit once he comes here.
I do have an update for you. So in terms of our backlog, we have approximately 1,000. Our average responses are moving about 220 per week. But junked and abandoned vehicle requests come in about 40 per day. So we're working the backlog as quickly as we can.
Thank you, Councilmember Green. Okay,
Well, just wanted to update you on a couple more of our ARPA funded projects. We've got 1.5 million that we're going to be dedicating for right-of-way improvements for striping. I know I've shared that list with you, Councilmember Giarrusso, and I'm happy to share it with the rest of the council, but there will be a significant amount of striping happening. One of the challenges we experience is that there are really 2 striping contractors in Southeast Louisiana. So capacity is definitely a challenge. So we hope to get the word out about that far and wide, so we can possibly attract, some new contractors in to do that. And then I talked briefly before about our speed management program. We really want to work with you to come up with some of the corridors we should target as part of that. It's a study, a 9 to 12 month study. We obviously get a lot of requests for stop signs. It's not the only traffic calming measure that we can implement. So this is a study that's really going to take a look at that, try to understand people's behaviors so that we can make data-driven decisions about how we want to approach speeding in the future.
anybody else? Okay,
Yep, no, I'm sorry. I do have
Go
a
ahead.
specific request. Elysian Field Avenue on Sundays from I-610 to the lakefront.
Okay.
I don't know what the guys are thinking. There've been multiple accidents. There needs to be some citations issued 1 or 2 Sundays to stop that foolishness. There've been accidents at the corner of Elysian Fields and Gentilly, injury, guy knocked off of a motorcycle, but all of them resulting from some crazy reason that they decide that Elysian Fields is the main thoroughfare to get to the lakefront at 90 miles an hour. All right?
Okay.
And I put in my usual kind of funny request. Mr. Threat, especially, get me the 6,300 block of Music Street finished.
Paving should be like in the next couple weeks. I mean, it is imminent.
That's working, and just for your information, Councilmember Green, my daughter lives up there,
Your
so I'm
daughter
not
lives
only
up-
getting,
right,
I'm
okay.
getting it from both sides.
That's gonna be one of my biggest celebrations when we finish the 6,300 block of Music Street.
Yeah,
And I want you to look at Burbank Street.
Burbank.
Street, yes.
Okay.
All right. Dear Francis Gregory School.
thank you, Councilmember Green. All right, Mr. Burnside,
Yeah, crap.
and
All right.
then Meredith Green.
Mike Art, Branchside 2215 Felicity. I'm in a regrettable situation of wanting to follow Mr. Green's lead, but only having 2 minutes. So I agree with Mr. Green. When things are done, you need to celebrate it. And I do know that when ribbon cuttings happen and the mayor shows up, there's a effort to clean up around the area. So maybe the cleanup will happen when things are done as well as when they start. Which is a problem at South Liberty and Terpsichore because it's done. It is done and it's not done. And it will never be done because there's this passive aggressive urge to just leave one more thing not done. So they come and do 7 things and leave 2. They come and do 2 and leave 1. They come and do 1 and leave a half. And there I am bitching about small shit. But it's kind of like being a lady who's invited a plumber into your kitchen. The sink works, but the place is a mess. So you hire a crew to come in to clean your kitchen. But unfortunately, the plumber also messed up the painting job. So then you call in a painter and then it's still messed up from the painter and you're like, never got your kitchen back. So the South Liberty of Terpsichore's got a little pile of concrete and they got 3 barrels and 1 cone, and they've been there for months since the last crew came by to do little crap that they really didn't want to do. And I hate saying this out loud, so I won't, but I'll tell you later. So we'll let that slide for now, move on over and talk about Canal Street. So we had a hotel fall down, and when it fell down, it screwed up the RTA red line that goes down North Rampart and the city sidewalk that was in front of the hotel a couple years ago now. And neither the RTA has replaced the electric lines necessary for the trolley, nor has the city reclaimed its sidewalk. It's now apparently a parking lot for a bunch of workers that could be parking on a vacant lot, since there is one, since there's no hotel. So much for the city sidewalk. As far as abandoned cars, I happen to know where there's at least 6, and I quit reporting them years ago because they just weren't being picked up. So I'm sure there are plenty more out there for the city to pick up if they want. I know of a couple cars that have been sitting out there for more than 1 year each. As far as street lights go, the underpass at South Carrollton is actually very dark. I walked home last night. There was no underpass lights for cars and no underpass lights for pedestrians. And there was a hole in the sidewalk that probably was at least 4 feet deep because there's some sort of subsidence going on there. As regard to street name backlog, I can understand that in-house is a good thing, and I can understand that making street signs with specific names is a good thing to do in-house. My problem has been, as everybody well knows, the truck route at Felicity has not been enforced despite the council passing laws in that regard, the previous council passing laws in that regard. And there are no truck route signs posted at the corner of South Claiborne. I get Carrollton and Claiborne mixed up all the time. South Claiborne and Felicity, and it would be nice to have such signage because we have 18-wheelers running down with some regularity. As far as catch beds cleaning, I'm not going to beat the drum as hard as Councilman Jeruso. I just point out the math is defeating you. You've got like 70,000 catch basins and you're not going to clean them all for the next 20 years, lateral lines or no lateral lines. And what's worse is you have catch basins that have been deliberately destroyed. So I know of at least 6 catch basins that have been deliberately destroyed by the property owners in which they are in front of in order to provide, say, for instance, vehicular access to a parking lot. And the catch basin was not replaced by one that a vehicle could drive over. It was just paved over. So I know of at least 6. There's probably more. It would be nice, Katie Donahue way back in the day did a little walkthrough with me. We got some catch basins fixed. It would be good if somebody was interested in replacement of completely destroyed catch basins, because I get very self-righteous living in a city that floods regularly and yet has human beings in it that find it in their personal best interest and economic choice to destroy catch basins, which really fucking pisses me off. As far as parking goes, it's interesting to see that.
You're way over, so you bring your comments to a close, please.
Yeah, 30 more seconds.
You got it.
Parking, you got 51 budgeted, you got 54 actuals, and yet somehow or another your parking enforcement officers are actuals at 22, budgeted at 15, and the tow trucks are the flip. You've got 18 budgeted and only 12 filled. And the last thing I'll mention is that once upon a time we bought a Goliath, and the idea of Goliath was it was going to haul 18-wheelers, and it's just disappeared, and I don't know where it went.
Thank you. All right, Meredith Green. Capital project.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yes, I'm here specifically about street light tickets. I have 4311 tickets I'd like to see addressed. 946-125, 947-195, 993345, and 993347. I appreciated that there were 4,000 lights repaired. Unfortunately, none of these lights were mine that I reported, that is, not mine, but that I reported. And I'm trying to understand the procedure that drives the workload for the execution of these 311 requests. I went to the Saturday to the city, the public not the hearing, but the little meeting we had at the Arbor Room, and it was said that sometimes streetlights have priorities, like if it's a crime area or if a crime was committed. And I understand all that, and I can appreciate that. At the same time, I learned how to use the open data tool, and when I learned how to use that, I was able to interrogate the system better as far as the 311 complaints. And I found that everything is not related to crime or everything. What I mean by that, everything is that streetlights that's been closed are not necessarily related to crime. It's sometimes it's related to who you know. I mean, I'm not making a charge. I can't prove it directly, but indirectly, if you observe the open data, it has I think it's at about 7,400 pages. What 7,184 pages. That's what it is exactly. Each page represents 100 complaints. So if you go in and you can pick out the different complaints. So on my way here this morning, I kind of just took a snapshot of a few of the pages, and it just doesn't seem that all of these like, in other words, there's streetlights that were turned in June 1st, was closed June 2nd. It was repaired. What was closed? And say it was repaired, say it was closed. Some turned in June 2nd, it was closed June 5th. My particular one, the one I mentioned initially, 96125, was turned in November 23rd of 22. It's still out. It just seems that there's some cherry picking going on, and I guess I just can fall silent if my lights get fixed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Can I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would love to respond to that. And we had a chance to talk on Saturday. I would say, and I know we've talked about this before, we have, right now, I think DPW has like 35,000 open cases. And we have not done a good job over the years of closing out our cases. It's not that there's that much work that hasn't been done, but our data isn't clean. And until it is, and that is a process that's underway right now, Mr. Green's absolutely right. We're not working, as equitably as we should. We are going through 311, but there are also requests that come in through council offices, through the mayor, through various places, and we send those all over to the contractor. So I agree with you. We need to get our data clean in order to be able to, work, consistently and in order through those 311 cases. The other thing I wanted to add, just because I know Mr. Burnside had asked about the project surrounding the old Hard Rock. So that the design has been completed and that should be advertised. Advertisement is imminent in the next couple of months to address the sidewalks. And I think there's some streetlights and some other things as part of that work. And I know RTA's project is also imminent. They actually had a traffic control plan that was unfortunately held up through our traffic division for a couple of months. I think we are through those reviews and they'll be able to move forward with the project as well. So those are moving.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add one more thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to thank the Department of Public Works for the number of vehicles that have been towed. It does make a difference in certain neighborhoods that look a mess. Because for some reason, there are a lot of people in the city who think that the best thing to do when I have a vehicle that I don't want anymore is to take the VIN number off of it and just leave it in a especially low to moderate income area to just get rid of it. I know it's going to be hard to do something about that, but I do want to tell you that I appreciate that work. I've seen it. It's visible, especially in the 7th Ward, not because it's the 7th Ward, but it's because there have been so many places, especially under the interstates, where people just leave cars. The other thing I want to say is to the public, you all have 4 tow truck driver positions available, right?
Yeah, we have a number, it may even be more than
It may
4.
even
So
be
we
more.
have. I
At
think
least in one division.
4 in process, 4 hires in process. We currently have 6 tow truck drivers. And I think there are some others that are advertised. So yeah, we are certainly hiring.
I just want to encourage people to fill those jobs. It makes a difference, not only in you having a good job, but that's an important part of making even children feel better about their neighborhoods. that there's not a car at the corner of North Tonti and Galvez that they can jump into and play like it's a toy. But it makes a difference in our city. So I want to help fill those positions, but I also recognize the hundreds of vehicles that have been taken off the streets. It's still a shame that the members of the public, we're frustrated because a lot of people think that that's just part of the culture of New Orleans. Just leave the vehicle there. That's not part of the culture. And the second thing is that as citizens, we can help with catch basin cleanup. One of the things that we can do is tell those who cut the grass and who clean up to not use the catch basins instead of using bags. And every bag is going to be taken. But all of that accumulation of old leaves and pine needles that don't dissolve permanently clogs up our drains, and it does a disservice to our citizens and our city. We can all help. Encourage people, and I encourage you, clean up the catch basin that's near you, just the top of it at least. And don't let those who cut grass in our city use our catch basins as an excuse for them not bagging up the trash.
Thank you. And I want to add one other thing just about streetlight repairs. Not every streetlight repair is the same. So sometimes it's as simple as cleaning the fixture. Sometimes it's as simple as changing the bulb. Sometimes it requires it requires foundation work and something that is much more comprehensive. So that is also, contributes to the reason why 2 cases might come in and one can be closed out more quickly than the other.
Good. Thank you very much. Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. All right, next up is capital projects, followed by sanitation.
I know. That's all right. My bad.
Oh, good morning.
Morning.
We'll start our capital budget quarterly briefing right now, and we have Ben Smith, who's the Director of Capital Projects, and also Kyle Holman. Kyle Holman is taking a place, as you may know, Kim DeLarge Jr. Moved up to take over EMD, and Kyle will be taking over capital budget. He'll be working the budgets for capital projects. He's working right now on the next bond sale, and he also works the budgets for most of the departments. So with that, Kyle, you want to start the briefing?
Yes, good afternoon, council, and thank you for having me. I just want to go, want to first off state that we want to work with the council more on the capital budget side. We know in the past that we want to be able to show you the projects that we're working on, how much funds we have, and be more transparent with kind of what we present. Just want to go to this first slide then for the budget snapshot. And I'm the other operating, we're doing well. We're a little under where we had planned originally, but just want to note that this other operating budget doesn't support just capital projects. It supports the project delivery unit as well as the stormwater and green infrastructure group. So we're still on target, and we have another like 150,000 on requisitions and contracts and purchase orders. And then before I hand it off to Vincent to talk about the personnel, I just wanted to speak to Councilmember Jeruso's question about the IDA PWs. FEMA has not obligated those yet, but we have an ordinance that's pending right now for 20 million for the emergency funds so that we can advance that scope right now. So I believe that made it on first read recently, so that should come before the full council soon. So Vincent.
Thank you. Good afternoon to the council. Just continuing on in the presentation, Kyle noted the funding side of it. Just moving to slide number 5, it's just a brief breakdown of the capital project positions. We have 22 people in our shop. We currently have 4 unfilled positions. We've actually got, and just on the project management side, we've got 10 project managers, and the rest of the staff represents support staff to the project team. Mentioned the 4 vacant positions. We're actually giving one of our vacant project management positions. We have 3. We are giving one to property management. They're in need of a project manager to assist them, with the many small project tasks that they, that they have to do. Well, not some small, some large, but they have to deal with. So we're doing that. We are advertising to fill the remaining 2 project management positions as we are planning to move forward, as we get the PWs, the IDA PWs, and move forward with engaging that work. We're going to have to add project managers to cover that. In terms of the capital project update, just breaking it into 3 parts. One is Q2 highlights, projects we've started and finished, and then we're going to move into some Q3 goals. Just in terms of Q2 highlights, over the second quarter of this year, capital projects completed the Desire Florida project, our Hunters Field restoration of the original Hunters Field facility, the Algiers Courthouse, Joe Bart Golf Shelters, and Gallia Hall renovations. So these projects were completed. Projects that were started during the Q2 quarter include the Morris Jeff Pool renovation project, NOFD headquarters, cutoff splash pad, and the Skelly Rupp renovations. Moving to the next slide, our Q3 milestones. And I'm not going to note them all. You can look at them, but we've got several projects queued out. Queued up. We're starting to kind of break through the delays that we've been experiencing over the past couple of years, just because of COVID and the effects of COVID regarding inflation and supply chain issues. Those are we're still dealing with that matter, but they're starting to clean up and open up and provide more, providing us with more opportunities to advance projects. Just do want to highlight the municipal auditorium, the FEMA scope of work. We are in the process of contracting with, we procured an architect, but negotiations failed. So we're moving on with the next highest scoring consultant and engaging in contract negotiations with them. So we should be starting design on the FEMA scope probably within the next month, sometime in July, late July, early August. We are continuing to meet with the Save Our Souls community organization as we are discussing with them the redevelopment of the auditorium itself. The FEMA work includes roof replacement, exterior hardening. We're going to be doing some interior environmental cleanup and some interior work that's in preparation for the development work that's going to occur in the future. Take any questions that you have regarding that after I finish the last portion of the presentation. There were some questions that we received in front of this meeting asking for an update on public safety projects. So we included an update on all of the public safety projects in the portfolio. There was a specific question about the status of the roof repair work at the French Quarter Police Station. And that project is in design. We're going to be finishing that up in the next 30 days and procuring a contractor to make repairs to that roof, the roof on that facility. We did an inspection on it. We initially thought we would have to replace it. It's in better shape than we anticipated. So it's going to be repair work instead of a replacement scope. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I think we did get, you get the report to them of all the projects. I think Joe got reports to you guys of all of our projects, so you could have that to look at as well in case you had any questions. And one last thing, we had our kickoff meeting for the 2024-2028 capital budgeting session this week. So we're launching out into the 2024-2028 capital budget. We met with all of the department heads and agency department heads, NOBC, the airport, those groups as well. We do an annual kickoff meeting where we go through the process. We distribute all of the information that they need to start preparing their budgets. So that's underway. We would like to have a kickoff session with you guys, and we'll work with you to schedule that so we can walk you through the processes that we engage, show you the package and the deliverables that we get. So we definitely want to schedule a time to meet with you guys to do that, so we can make sure that we're on the same page in terms of what you're looking for, what you're expecting, and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think when we met, I said there are no fun projects in my district. It's all government buildings. Other districts have walking paths and parks and splash pads, but mine's all government buildings, which sucks. But speaking of government buildings, are there any, Joe, I know we keep talking about the 6th district and the HVAC. Is there any thought about in the future evaluating whether or not that entire system should be replaced?
Then, after yesterday, I mean, it's been a month because it seems like everything, the timing is like, let all the HVAC systems go down on all city buildings at the same time. The heat is a factor, but I mean, the deferred maintenance, the systems are old. So I think that it's some opportunities for us I talked to the state about hardening or HMGP dollars. We talk about brick dollars. But I think that in the next bond sale, we've got to take a hard look at the HVAC systems. And when you talk about the HVAC system, to upgrade them to be energy efficient, to meet the climate action and everything that we're using, portfolio. But absolutely, the systems are old. And we're just putting Band-Aids on them right now.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, if you think about our public safety buildings, I think we should be thinking about greening those, making sure that they are solar powered. I mean, there's so many outages and everything, and we have these great lighthouses that can run off of no energy except for solar power. We should be thinking about our police stations and making sure that if the lights go out, that they can still be up and running.
Well, we're working on some hardening, HMGP hardening money right now that we got opportunity to use from IDA. We got HMGP dollars, and the priority is for the public safety, NOPD, NOFD, roof systems. And if we go with roof, we can go solar at the same time.
That'd be great. And just so you know, you probably know this, Joe, CDC is closed right now.
I heard about it.
And that building also just is in deplorable shape.
It is.
I say that as a lawyer, but also as a person who is over this district and where that building sits. It's really.
Yeah, we're working it right now. So I saw the email when we came in.
All right. I'm looking forward to fun projects.
Yes.
All right. Councilmember Green?
Yes, I do have a question. Could you clarify for the public the OJC Medical Services Building, just because we have a lot of different titles that are being used? Let's have the public understand, and it says starting construction in the third quarter. Can we talk about that one for a second?
Yes, we can. The city, we took bids on the project in April, second bid. We bid the project originally in December of this year. And as you guys well know, the project came in way over budget. The budget, came in over budget. First bid came in at $84 million. We were ordered by the court to reprocure, and we only got one bid. So we had to reprocure, two reasons. One, because of the price. Two, federal regulations require that we get a minimum of two bids. So we had our architects go back and project manager, look at the project and, try to, figure out what happened. Obviously, once again, the inflation issues impacted the project. We only had one bidder, so we didn't have enough participation. So we, just because of the federal mandate we're under and the push to get the project moving, we put it back out on the street to comply with the judge's order. We actually came to you guys and we got an additional $30 million to add to the project. We had our original budget was 36. We got additional FEMA money. So we've got $41 million in FEMA money. We added $30 million in bonds to give us a total of $71 million. We bid the project the second time. It came in higher. It came in at 87 million, I believe. So taking that number and adding the additional increases in soft costs and contingency that are associated with the construction costs, that put the total cost of the project at, and it's been mentioned, at over $100 million. The construction project itself, the bid came in at 38 million over what we estimated the construction cost to be. We have, we are putting together, in response to the council's request last week to the courts to perform an audit on the project. We're pulling together all of the estimates that we have gone through during the course of design, and putting some narrative to it to give it some context, and we'll be submitting that to you guys this week. So we're pulling that together. Just in terms of our diligence in advancing the procurement, when we bid the first project, our projects go out to the Dodge Room. So there, Dodge Room is viewed, by contractors, certainly in the region, all over the country. Our project management team, Hill International, is out of Dallas. They made some phone calls to generals that they know. Our architect did that as well. So we did attempt to broadcast to a broader contracting community in the hopes that we would get more participation. We did that in both instances. In the second time we bid the project, we actually had a mandatory pre-bid meeting. We required contractors that were interested in bidding the project to attend the meeting so that we could get a general idea of, who could possibly be bidding the project. We had 3 general contractors show up. And even with that, only 1 contractor submitted a bid. So, of course, this is a public bid project, and we have to accept the contractor with the lowest responsible and responsive bid. The contractor that submitted the bid submitted all of his documentation to affirm his responsiveness and responsibleness. So, here we are. I think Kyle and Joe are working with you guys as we're preparing, looking at projects and preparing the ordinance in concert with everything else that you guys are doing on your end. But we've been actually having conversations with the McDonald Group, who is the contractor, helping them to prepare to mobilize. We've got the outstanding issue with the CEA agreement and the sheriff that you guys are fully aware of as well. And that is, critical for us to start the project. So, we are the city on our side. We're doing everything that we know to do, that we can do, that we are obligated to do as a result of the federal mandate to advance the project and, fulfill our obligations to the federal courts.
I appreciate Capital Projects responding in a timely manner to the request of the city council, which was just made last week, and I look forward to your report. I just wanted it to be out in the public in terms of identification of what medical services building means. It's basically phase 3 of the
Yes.
whatever. I just wanted us to be on the same page, but I appreciate that additional information. Very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And in just closing that loop, we sent, as you know, questions to everybody. Given that we were required to have mandated criminal justice meetings, we're going to start sending the questions in advance to all of the criminal justice actors too. So that way we make sure we're all on the same page. Thank you all very much. We appreciate. Oh, wait, Mr. Burnside, you've got 2 minutes of capital projects, sir. I keep trying to forget you and then remembering at the last second. Not intentional, I promise.
I was going to say, for a man who voluntarily came to my birthday party to try to forget me, it's just kind of rude, isn't it? So capital projects, I don't have a lot to say other than I regret my councilwoman only having government buildings to deal with, because I have government swimming pools to deal with, and they're inter-district, and I don't know if capital budget has anything to do with it, but I'm going to bring them up anyway. I've been told, and I believe, that A.L. Davis Park swimming pool is closed this summer, period, meaning it will never open, because last summer it leaked water all over Simon Boulevard Avenue and had some sort of chlorine issue. So I don't know what it takes to fix a pool from leaking. I was hoping to turn that pool into an indoor pool and have 24/7 access. Why not dream big? But sadly, apparently, and I cannot pronounce the word correctly, the new natatorium or whatever the heck it's called over at Girktown, I am told, again, I haven't gone there myself to look at this, but apparently it's also closed because it also leaks and they also have chlorine problems. So we are edging from capital projects to who do we hire to solve our problems? The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers found a pump that was suffering a large amount of corrosion, and it made the newspaper, and it was, oh my God, how could this pump corrode? I don't necessarily want to go too deeply into this, but you hire people to do jobs that may not necessarily want to do a good job. And the city suffers. There was a building that fell down on Terpsichore that hit the neighboring house. The lady who lived there had to evacuate for 3 or 4 days. And the state fire marshal condemned the building that fell down and hired a person to come in and demo the remains. And the lady was back in her home with her daughter, as next door one gentleman ran an excavator to destroy a building. On his pickup truck, he had a Confederate flag. So I would suggest that perhaps we need an HVAC employee of the city to go around and look at HVACs, because I'm not 100% sure everybody we hire as a contractor has our best interest at heart. And I would like to know how many years some of these HVACs have served us, because obviously if they've served for 35 years, we should give them a retirement. But if on the other hand, they've only served for maybe 4 or 5, we should find out who put them in and what other business have they done for the city?
Yeah, that's a good point, Mr. Burnside, because I think one of the elements, and like you say, we try to fix everything, but one of the elements is asset management software platform to just tell us that information, when it's time to do maintenance, when it's time to repair and replace, and when it's time to take it off the books. And I think we're beyond the time to take those HVAC systems off the books. So it's a priority for us. We're working on that right now to be able to gather the information, not only on the HVACs, but on the buildings, on the streets, on the roads, on the catch basins. It's the whole package that we're putting together right.
Yeah, and just another quick response to the comment. Capital projects will reach out to NORD. We were unaware of the issues at both parks, and we'll reach out to them. And if there's anything we can do to support them in the repair effort, we certainly will. I know in the Girktown pool, they did have some Hurricane Ida damage. One of the return air ducts, a huge duct, blew off the building, and they got some water infiltration. That duct has been repaired, put back on the building, and of course we are waiting to see, waiting to get the final PW from FEMA so we can start, making any permanent repairs that, and, at this point, once again, I think we've got the building stabilized. But once again, I'll reach out to Norton. If there's anything we can do to assist, we certainly will.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. All right, last, certainly not least, sanitation.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then that we, party.
Oh, sorry, let's do it.
Yeah. I don't- Thanks.
Okay, council, this is our last for the infrastructure group. We've got Matt Torrey here, who's the director of sanitation. As you know, we've had our challenges in the sanitation group. We have worked out a get well package, as we called it, with Richards Disposal. We've got a few missed collections, but they are doing a better job picking up and salvage and curbside collections. We have went out with an RFP. Matt will talk about that for service areas 1 and 4. And with that, Matt, you can start your briefing, council.
Great. Thanks, Joe. Good afternoon. Council, thanks for having us here today. So as Joe mentioned, just start off with stating, since the beginning of the year and even since the last time we were here for the Q1 budget hearing, the elements within sanitation around the city have continued to stabilize and get better. We've seen a dramatic reduction in missed collection complaints from the end of last year through Q1 and through now, which is, I know, wonderful to residents, to us, and to you all who bear the brunt of a lot of those complaints. So we're coming in at the end of 2022, the beginning of 2023. So I think that's a testament to the plan that Joe and the administration put together, really getting things stabilized across all the service areas. So happy to be in that good state and just looking to keep it going forward to keep things moving smoothly. Looking at our budget snapshot, sanitation's in a healthy position through the remainder of the year. Ample funds to keep us running through our forecasted spend through the end of the year. What you see here is our year-to-date spend of approximately $30 million. There's also our pre-encumbered and commitments, which make up almost another $15 million there. So as well, so we are, spending our budget. We are encumbering funds as we can with contracts as they're available. And again, we're in good shape through the end of the year from a healthy budgetary perspective with regards to our other operating budget.
Matt, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I know we're in good spending here, and maybe this is already bridging for what comes next, but I think the level set, the new contracts are out for the RFP for service areas 1 and 4, and then the costs have dramatically increased as a result of the new contracts that are in place. Can we safely assume that whatever we did for service areas 2 and 3 will be roughly equal to, or maybe even slightly more for service areas 1 and 4?
Yeah, I think it's a fair assumption to say that the increases that we saw for the contracts that we awarded last year for service areas 2 and 3 is what we can anticipate for the new RFPs for service areas 1 and 4. Now those costs will come in and starting in April of next year, so they won't hit us until 2024. So we're still healthy for the remainder of this year. But yes, we'll see an increase. I think what we saw since we did our procurements in Jefferson Parish and East Baton Rouge is that what we thought we were ahead of the game as far as getting out there on new contracts. We see our neighboring parishes following us. And the rates that we received actually are very favorable when, in comparative, when you look at those other parishes. I mean, it's just the new marketplace now as far as what we're looking at for this type of service.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're headed where I am, which is other parishes are paying more now than they were just a few years ago. B, I think the analysis the CAO's office did for us is as of 2021, the city was in about a $600,000 hole when it came to the revenue collected from sanitation fee and then the expenses. And then after we did the contracts for service areas 2 and 3, $15 million. So I say all of this because I think you're hitting the points of contracts have increased, prices increased, equipment, gas, all these things. And we have a public who keeps on saying, I'm paying for twice a week service, but we also need to focus on how much the expenses have exploded too.
Yeah, and as you all are aware, we haven't changed the sanitation fee since 2010. That's a long time. I mean, almost everything has gone up in price since 2010. What you saw in our neighboring parishes when they did their new contracts in Jefferson Parish and East Baton Rouge, there was an automatic increase and basically a direct pass through to the residents. So in East Baton Rouge, they saw a 50% increase in the amount they pay per month. In Jefferson Parish, you saw a significant increase that brings them currently to paying $24 a month, which is what we pay. And they actually have a separate RFP out for recycling services, which will come in later this year, which will then likely tap on an additional amount to that to put them above where we currently are per month. So yeah, you see in neighboring parishes, when they do a solicitation, they're just basically passing through the cost straight through. If it costs this much, that's how much we charge the resident. We historically haven't done that here. We've done this hybrid model where we have a sanitation fee, but we offset it with the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. From a personnel perspective, we've been steadily adding employees over the course of 2023. So we're extremely appreciative, to the council for the funding, the administration for the approval to do that, as well as the finance department. Since the last time we were here, we've added six new employees from Q1, 4 additional laborers, 2 equipment operators. We're in the process of hiring 3 new laborers, 2 equipment operators, and 2 enforcement rangers. That would be another 7 employees, which would bring us to 78 employees. We started out the year, budgeted FTEs of 60. So I think this is right in line with our methodology of very slow and deliberate growth. We're not trying to bring on large numbers of people all at once because it's hard to ingrain them into our processes. So we're doing steady growth. We also continue to see a lot of attrition. Just as naturally in an operational department, we see a lot of folks that either leave involuntarily or voluntarily. So we're constantly backfilling those positions in addition to seeking new employees. But I'm extremely happy, that the funding has been provided. We've been able to find folks that want to work here. We have great partnerships with Job One and First 72 as far as reentry and hiring programs that we've been able to really leverage and find a really good applicant pool for people that are looking for that long-term career here at the city.
I'd like to just say for the members of the public, what you just heard was that the city is committed to those who may have unfortunately wound up on the wrong side of the law for a while, and that the Department of Sanitation is looking for persons who wish to apply, who want to work for the city of New Orleans. All of those jobs includes benefits, retirements, very favorable working conditions, and you make a difference in the city. It's important for us to emphasize that the reason that the city council has done such things as banned the box and reached out to other agencies is because we're concerned and we want to help people who may have had misfortunes on a legal side, who want to re-enter society to join the city of New Orleans. So thank you, Mr. Torrey, and also thank you for those involved with Public Works and Sanitation and other departments for going out of your way to make sure that there's an opportunity for those citizens to re-enter our society. Thank you.
Absolutely. You see here again, just a summary of our vacancies. We have requisitions approved in place for all these hires. We have hirings in process for these positions. We continue to promote from within as well. So we have a wonderful partnership with Sewage and Water Board where we send laborers and maintenance workers over to Sewage and Water Board to participate in their CDL program. So they go through a training, and upon passing the written and driving exam, they receive their CDL driver's license, which allows them to drive heavy equipment with the city Department of Sanitation and move into the equipment operator classification, which is a whole different responsibility and pay classification. So we have employees that are working through that program right now as well, and we continue to use it, as a stepping stone for people to grow once they come into the sanitation. So not only are we, looking and hiring a diverse workforce, but we constantly look to grow employees from within. So there is a progression path. When you come into sanitation, you have the opportunity to move up. Many of our employees started years ago. A lot of our supervisors started as laborers a decade or so ago and have slowly moved up through the ranks and made it to supervisor. So that growth and potential is there with us once you come in as well. One-time fun update. We were grateful to receive $1.6 million allocation to address the illegal dumping backlog throughout the city. I think I can confidently say we've made a pretty significant dent in illegal dumping on the right-of-way in 2023. Our contractor that we've been working with, MDL Enterprises, has been on the ground since February 27th. They've done an amazing job running multiple crews 5 days a week and steadily removing illegal dumping from all neighborhoods and all council districts around the city. MDL has remediated approximately 1,500 illegal dumping sites so far this year and removed almost 900 tons of debris between February and June. So that's in complement to what sanitation is doing as well. So having MDL's additional crews out there really has allowed us to focus on tires, which contractors generally don't have the LDQ permits to remove. So sanitation has removed almost 20,000 tires from the public right of way already this year. So that's a big number, on track to, get to close to 40,000. And it also allows us to focus on special requests that may come in from various channels. Your offices count the administration, residents that might not come in through our normal channels like 311 and get to those quicker than we normally would. So again, we're extremely appreciative of the work that MDL's done. We've spent about half the money that's been allocated to us. So again, in a very healthy posture through the remainder of the year to keep MDL on and supporting us, which is great to see. And I think we have some pictures here. You see here just some before and after pictures of the things, that we see every day around the city when it comes to illegal dumping. And then these are sites that were remediated by the MDL crews around the city. Again, if there are tires present, MDL notifies the Department of Sanitation, and we will trail behind them at a later date and grab those tires after they've removed the debris. But you see, again, a lot of the scenarios and situations that we and you all come across throughout the entire city on a daily basis of dumping. It has been great to be able to get debris off the ground and have turnaround times be quicker, but nonetheless, we're still facing a steady flow of illegal dumping returning to locations, and we do have these chronic locations that plague us.
Thank you for your work, Mr. Torrey. I do want to tell the public that there are at least 2 arrest warrants out right now for people who illegally dump. When citizens are able to take a video of you doing that bad work and they get your license plate, they share it with the New Orleans Police Department. And I encourage those who are illegally dumping, who have already been paid for their work. That's the thing. All of these dumps that we see, many of them, I'm not going to say all of them, because the Department of Sanitation, through its contractors, will pick up much of what is left outside of a house. This is people who've been paid for their work already, who are too lazy and who are too criminal to simply go to the dump site on Albanasta Avenue and get rid of it. There's no excuse for it. We know exactly what's going on. And with those 2 arrest warrants, when those 2 arrests take place, it'll be the beginning of what we hope in our city will be, one, an end to the illegal dumping, but also those who are quote unquote contractors, because they're not legitimate contractors that they choose to dump their waste on the street. We would hope that those who are disparaging our communities by dumping illegally will get the message and will also do the right thing.
Yes, and thank you all for your strong advocates of that enhanced enforcement. We do need to send a message to folks that we won't tolerate it, and the only way to do that is to actually enforce the laws that are currently on the books as far as issuing summons and handing out fines and potentially even jail time for the most severe violations. Councilmember Druso, you alluded to the RFPs for service area 1 and 4. So both of those RFPs were released on June 22nd. This is for East Bank and West Bank of the areas currently serviced by Richards Disposal. You see the maps here, those service areas. The RFP number for service area 1 is 3185 and RFP number 3191 for service area 4. We included a snapshot of the key milestones from the RFP timeline here so that the council and the public can participate. We certainly encourage that. The pre-submittal conference will be on July 7th at 11 a.m. You can either attend in person here at City Hall, or there's a virtual login Zoom meeting as well for that. The submission deadlines for both of those RFPs is August 11th at 4 p.m. And we expect to convene the selection committee after Labor Day. Those selection committee meetings are all public. So folks are encouraged to come again to participate however they see fit. And we're working towards a transition date of April 1st, 2024. So our current contracts come to an end on March 31st, 2024. So I think we've provided ample time for a smooth transition. As we saw with our last procurements, there is some work that has to be done when it comes to contract negotiations. And then there's a lead time on procuring new equipment, hiring, and getting things in place to have a smooth transition. These RFPs have some changes from the last RFPs that were issued, hopefully some improvements, not only around the messaging to residents with regards to the transition and making sure everybody is aware of the details of that and potential new service days, but also consummating some of the changes that were put in place in the new service areas. So right now we have collections happening 6 days a week. And once the new contracts take place, we will only have collections that occur Monday through Friday. So Saturday collections will go away in these remaining areas. Trash and recycling collection will happen on the same day throughout the entire city, which means you will only have trucks coming through your neighborhood 1 day a week, which I know will be a pleasant improvement for some neighborhoods now that have multiple days of a trash or recycling truck coming through as well. So looking forward to a really active response from our contractor community and a smooth transition. That's all I have for today. So happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
I don't have any more. Councilmember Green is good. Mr. Burnside. Thank you for being here.
And Councilman
everybody-
Russo, even though I said I didn't have anything, before Mr. Burnside speaks, I just want to ask you to thank the sanitation crews. I've seen them working on Saturdays. I've seen them going a little bit out of their way to do certain things. I think that they're motivated. So what you're doing internally and talking to them is certainly making a difference, but it's also making a difference in our community. And I know it's hard to get around to all of it because there's so many bad actors who are illegally dumping in our city. It's ridiculous, actually, but it's very criminal. But at the end of the day, there are crews that go out there in the sun on Saturdays. There are crews that go out there and pick up things that are unsafe to pick up, and they're doing it, and I appreciate it. Please let them know that I know the members of the council join me and say thank you to them.
Yeah, I sure will. And thank you and to the rest of the council members that, to come out and are there when they're working. It's noted. When you're there, they see it. When you share praise in your newsletters and through other channels, we print that and share that with them. And it really is a morale boost to see council members out there when they're doing encampment cleanups or special cleanups or whatever it is. It really shows that their work is valued and they appreciate it. So I'm sure to pass it along anytime you all have any praise, and I'll certainly share your comments from today. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Burnside.
Mr. Green and I may have been twins in a previous life. I was going to come up here and thank you guys for the hard work you do in the encampment cleanup, and I do appreciate that. There's several things here that haven't really been touched on or been touched on sideways and briefly that I'd like to highlight. One of which is that you don't collect your fees for sanitation unless somebody's got a water bill. Because I hope I'm getting this wrong, But I think that the sanitation's on my water bill, and I think I pay like $25 a month for it. Which means everybody who's got a vacant lot or an abandoned house or otherwise isn't paying or having a water bill isn't paying anything for sanitation. Which means that some of the properties get dumped off in front of an abandoned house, and there's a big pile of trash there, and then the normal collector doesn't pick it up because he's not paid to. So I think that's a little hole that I've been fighting for like 6 years now. The next thing is that there's a difference between enablement and enforcement. So if we keep going around cleaning up after people, and I do know what I just said about the homeless encampment, but if we keep going around and cleaning up, particularly after businessmen who are making a profit, there's no real incentive for them to stop having us come around and clean up after them. So at some point, we have to continue to enable because that's what government does. We cap orphan oil wells, but we also have to enforce, and we have to take capitalists and say, hey, you need to reduce your profit margin. People are only getting once a week instead of twice, and for people that eat crawfish, it makes them unhappy. As far as Mardi Gras, you guys did a lot of work on Mardi Gras, and I think you really should have, instead of overtime, I think you should have a separate Mardi Gras budget, kind of like the police secondary employment or something, and pay people different rates because they engage in activities that aren't normal sanitation activities on those days. The idea that the budget and the actual so far part's concerning for people like me, it would be nice if we could change the budget, even though we may not be able to, but to have 71 employees when you're budgeted for 60 kind of makes a person like me twitch when we first see it. With the other parishes setting a new marketplace, we may want to take over one of these particular zones, I believe we're calling them. No, service area 1 and 4. We may want to take over one of those ourselves and have an in-house capability to do at least one. I think that's actually a long-term important thing. And as far as the rest of it goes, you're correct when you say that there's a steady flow of dumping and there are chronic areas. One of the chronic areas, and I'd like to highlight, is the corner Ferret and Phillip. Right now it's clean, but what happens is because there's the delay between the tire pickup and the people who come up and pick the non-tires, there's a continual something there. So people come and pick up everything except the tires, and then there's tires on the corner. People come and dump stuff. Somebody comes and picks up the tires, but then there's stuff, and somebody dumps tires, and then it comes and picks up the stuff. So there's this multi-year investment in that corner, which includes a vacant lot which grass grows and a vacant house that's abandoned, one lot over. The whole thing I watched a person dump there, and they were fairly confident and didn't seem ashamed and had no intention of ever getting caught because nobody cared.
Thank you, Mr. Burnside. All right, we have no other items on the agenda. Yes, sir? For this topic too? All right, well, come forward, Mr. Green. We'll get, I don't know what happened to the other card. I know you had one on streetlights, but come forward and we'll take care of getting another one. Thank you for your patience.
I'll be brief. My comment is on the ongoing abatement at Bundy Road. And I was wondering, I'm smiling because I had talked to Ms. Porteous, and she told me that as she put it, right away is Department of Public Works, and private property is code enforcement. And there's a mountain of tires on the abatement property on Bundy Road, literally a mountain. So I'm wondering if sanitation could maybe bend the rules one time and help Director Mulligan finish his project on Bundy Road. I realize, like Ms. Porteous says, it is private property, but it is tires and it is DEQ controlled, which Mr. Mulligan may not be able to deal with the DEQ. So maybe y'all can help us on Bundy Road and get rid of that mountain of tires so we can button that place up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just real quick on that, I've received a separate email on that today, and just so everybody has clarity and we all stay on the same page, right? So the Department of Sanitation removes waste tires from the public right of way, which is governed by the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality. We are explicitly prohibited from removing tires from private property. And would it be if the city did remove those, we would have to bear the entire cost of the disposal of that. So I think that's a distinction, but I'm happy to talk with code enforcement and team about how we just solve the problem of the tires on that lot one way or the other, because the picture was astounding. Yeah, there's thousands of tires there.
Okay.
Yeah, and Councilmember Jeruso, I've got takeaways from the last couple of days. The prioritization of HVAC elevators at public safety, the right-of-way improvements around public safety, the Ground Transportation Bureau working group with council to try to enforce the scooters and
Yeah, we have that meeting scheduled already.
right, procurement workshop, we talked about that yesterday. Pools, I took the comments from Mr. Burnside. We're gonna take a look at that. The street lights. Mr. Green's still here, he's gone. Yep, we're gonna take a look at that in 311. I don't know, I'm thinking about giving Mr. Green a job doing that 311 database. He's doing data analysis on that package and, you know, we can see what we can do. The catch basin cleaning, accelerating the catch basin cleaning, towing, increasing our capacity in towing. The bond sale, I want to get together and actually sit down, once we get in the capital planning, budgeting process, to sit down and talk about the next bond sale.
Okay.
And see what the priorities are for the council districts. And I think that, Sarah, do you have anything else that we take away from our infrastructure brief? I think that's about it.
Thank you very much. All right. Tomorrow we come back in the morning to talk about ARPA spending and where we are relative to that. And then 1 o'clock, we have a joint utilities and I think GA meeting as well. So we'll be fully occupied in chambers. Thank you to everybody.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your support.